So starting with our back bend class this morning, you have 2 blocks or a pillow or something to lie your back over if you have access to those props. And then if you're using the blocks the same as last week, you've got 1 block running straight down your mat on its middle height, and then your other block is supporting your head a little bit higher up. And if that feels too strong, you can always drop the blocks so that they're less high. So just feel what's working for you this morning. You're going to come to sitting with your legs crossed. And then slowly using your hands, guide yourself down to lying over the block. And here you want it to feel like it's supporting your ribs between your shoulder blades and your upper back. So if the block is too low into your low back, it can feel a bit uncomfortable. So make sure it's not too low. And then it's always a bit of a fiddle to get your block underneath your head. Make sure that it doesn't want to drop and fall to the side. And then always just making sure that your neck isn't dropping back so that your head feels well supported in whatever support you've taken. Your legs come into an easy cross-legged position. And your arms are going to gently float into cactus. If you are working with any shoulder niggles today, just release your arms down to your sides and keep an easy stance. And I'll advise you where to be careful of not overdoing it in your shoulders. If everything is feeling good, you're going to slide your elbows up along the sides and then back down towards your hips. So almost drawing that little bent elbowed snow angels with those arms, just to feel a nice stretch across the shoulders and the chest. And you can bring in your breath here as you inhale, arms up, and exhale, arms down. And just use this time to connect with your breath, feel how you're feeling this morning, check into your body. And then with your arms overhead, you're going to hold onto your elbows. And again, if you're working with any shoulder niggles, release your arms down at this point. And if you're okay, let your forearms drop back heavily so you're feeling a little stretch into those arms, into the shoulders, into the armpits. Reach up through your elbows to feel length into the sides of your body. Take a nice deep breath here. And then change the cross of your arms so that your other elbow is on top. And then allow the arms to drop back into shoulder flexion. So we're working shoulder flexion for our top arm in mermaid pose. One last deep breath here. And then you slowly release your arms back down towards your sides. And just take a moment just to feel a nice gentle upper back bend where we're feeling a nice lift in the chest, nice opening across those collarbones. And when you're ready, we're preparing to come up to seated. So pressing through your hands, propping yourself back up to seated for a moment to remove your support off to the side. So take your blocks or your pillow away. Uncross your legs and then slowly lie back down onto your back. Good. Coming into a figure 4 stretch, cross your right ankle over your left thigh and feel your right thigh pressing out to the side so we're externally rotating the hip for our pigeon pose later on. And then floating your left leg up, take hold of the back of the left thigh or shin. And just start to feel an easy stretch coming into those hips. As always, making your shoulders are relaxing back into the mat and there's no tension in your neck. Nice deep breaths here. We're coming into a twisted figure 4 where we'll take an extra quad stretch. So quite nice to think about popping your left toes towards the middle of the mat. As you twist your legs over towards the side, towards the left. And then if this is enough, you can just stay here with cactus arms, or right hand reaches down for your left foot. And maybe you wiggle that foot to hold and draw the thigh back for a gentle quad stretch. If that's not working for you this morning, don't worry about it. Just stay in the twisted figure four and take a few deep breaths into this twist. And you can explore opening the right knee up to the ceiling or letting it drop down towards the floor. We're just giving you a nice stretch this morning. If you release and prepare to come back to center, and then change the cross of your legs. Left ankle crosses over right thigh, and come into your lying down figure four stretch. Take a few deep breaths here, pressing that left thigh out to feel the external rotation in the hip, which we'll be using later on for our pigeon pose. And then taking that into a twisted figure four, so you bring your arms out to the side, twisting towards the right, and thinking of bringing your right toes towards the middle of the mat so you can easily reach down with your left hand for your foot to find a little quad stretch lying down there. Good, that's it. And then explore opening the left knee open towards the ceiling and dropping it down towards the floor. Lovely. And then just feeling where you're feeling a nice, gentle twist. Sometimes holding the bottom foot can feel a little bit sticky, so don't worry if you're not quite holding there yet. Good. Let's slowly release and just hug both knees into your chest for a nice big hug and rock a little from side to side, massaging out your lower back, just releasing into those back muscles before we start moving into our back bends. Good. And when you're ready, roll yourself up to all fours, coming onto hands and knees. And with your hands placed underneath your shoulders, fingers spread wide, and knees underneath the hips. Take a moment here, and then bring big toes together, knees apart, and sit down into a child's pose, pressing your hips back down towards your heels. And then walk your hands forwards out in front of you and lower your head to the mat. Good. Take a few breaths here in your child's pose position. Really reach your arms forward. So you're feeling that sense of length into the sides of your body. Arms are straight, active arms. Good. And then from here, release your elbows onto the mat, hands together in prayer. And bend your elbows to take your hands towards the back of your head in your child's pose position. So elbows are still on the floor. Drop your head down so you're resting on the forehead if that feels okay. Good. And then wiggle your elbows forwards a little more so you're feeling more of a stretch into your triceps. You're feeling a little bit more work into your shoulders. So Cindy, wiggle your elbows towards the front of the mat. Yes. So you're kind of feeling a bit of work into your shoulders, working shoulder flexion, working the shapes of that top arm in mermaid pose. Elaine, if this gets too much for your shoulder, just come to normal child's pose or arms back. Okay. Stay here. And if you'd like to take the bind, you can circle your left hand behind you and then hold fingertips in a Gomukhasana cow face bind. Yes, so left arm circles towards the back. And then you're holding onto fingertips. If you're working with any shoulder niggles, avoid this one and just kind of be where your shoulders are happy. Good, and then release and do that on the other side if you've done it already, just to even that out. Good. If that feels too strong on the shoulders today, stay in a version which feels best for you. Lovely, well done. Take one more breath here. And then release your hands forwards back into child's pose and push yourself back up onto hands and knees, coming back onto all fours. Moving into cat-cow, as you inhale, arch the back, lift your chest and broaden across your collarbones. And as you exhale, round through the spine, push into your hands, feel a nice stretch across your back. And then just moving with your breath as you inhale, arch the back, lift your chest, lifting the gaze slightly. And exhaling as you round through the spine. Continue for 3 more rounds with your own breath at your own rhythm. Feeling into your body, releasing into any tight spaces, and just warming up through the back. And after your last one, just returning back to a neutral position, nice strong arms, fingers spread wide. As you reach your right leg behind you, take that right leg up nice and high at the back. So we're allowing those hips to open. Bend your right knee like a little scorpion tail and squeeze that right thigh up nice and high. Look forwards and lean forwards over your wrists. Little baby chaturanga as you bend your elbows. Keep your chest open and squeeze your back thigh up a little higher. Take a breath here. Push through your hands to come back upright. Knee to nose and big step forwards into low lunge. Walk your hands forwards and stack your right knee over your right ankle and take a few breaths here. As you pop up onto your fingertips, lengthen your spine. Sink down through the hips to feel a nice big hip flexor and quad stretch into your back leg. And breathe here. Ground your left hand flat on the floor and twist your right hand up towards the ceiling. And then slowly bend your back knee. If you feel like you're really on your kneecap, shuffle your back leg away slightly. So you rest more on the top of the thigh as you bend your back leg and reach your right hand back for your left foot. Coming into a quad stretch. If your right knee opens a little bit out to the side to create space, allow for that. Twist your chest open. Nice deep breath here. Slowly we release. Ground through your hands and keep your right leg straight back behind you. Keeping the right leg up. Bend the right knee once again. This time shift your weight onto your right hand and reach left hand back for left foot. Opposite hand to foot. Good. Keep your foot into your hand as you lift your chest. Push off your right hand. Lean the shoulders back and twist chest open. Lovely. Take one more breath here. And release back onto all fours. Well done. Let's feel that on the other side. Inhale, extending left leg back and up. Take that leg up nice and high. Bend the left knee, little scorpion tail. Look forwards, lean forwards, chaturanga. Opening the chest, squeeze those elbows in. Take a breath. Pushing back up to all fours. Knee to nose, step forwards, low lunge. Sinking down into the hips. Stacking left knee over left ankle. On the fingertips, lengthen through your spine. Find a nice stretch into your right back hip. And then moving into our quad stretch, we ground the right hand. Twist left arm up to the ceiling. Good, and then make sure that back knee shuffle back enough so when you bend your back knee, you're resting more to the thigh and not quite onto the kneecap as you move into a little quad stretch. Maybe not such a little stretch, maybe a big stretch. Good. Lean your head back and twist your chest open here. And continue to drop down through the hips to feel a nice big stretch into that back thigh. One more breath. Feeling that back leg shape we'll need later on in our mermaid. Release, ground through the hands. And then kicking your left leg back behind you. Shift your weight onto your left hand. As you reach right hand back for right foot, opposite hand to foot. And then kick your foot into your hand as you twist your chest open and lift those toes up nice and high. Take one more breath. And gently release back to all fours. Well done. Check it out. All right, if you need to walk yourself a little bit forwards with your hands to come into plank. So with fingers spread wide, shoulders stacked over wrists. Step one foot back, followed by the other. Find your plank, nice and strong. And with a slow, strong push, pressing the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Push into your hands and see how high you can lift your sit bones up towards the ceiling. Taking a slight bend in the knees if you need to in order to get the hips up high. Breathing into your down dog. Gazing to the top of the mat, option to walk, step or jump forwards to your hands. We bring hands to shins for a halfway lift to really encourage the lift of the chest. You may be even moving into a little gentle back bend here. As you press your chest forwards, don't scrunch your neck, keep the back of the neck long. And exhale to forward fold, head down, hands in line with feet. And then relax your head down fully. Rise up to standing as you inhale, breathe both arms up. Nice big reach up through those arms. And then relax your arms down to your sides and take a moment just to breathe and ground here in your Tadasana mountain pose. Let's inhale, arms up, high mountain. And drop your right arm down to the side. And take a little side stretch over to the right. Opening up the sides of the body, warming up the spine. Inhale, reach both arms up. And then dropping your left arm down to the side, take a little side stretch to the left. Good. Keep your shoulders and hips pointing forwards so the chest is nice and open. Inhale, arms reach up. And exhale, forward fold, coming all the way down. Relaxing the neck. Bringing hands to shins, halfway lift, press your chest forwards. Focus on really lifting the chest. Almost feel like you're in a little back bend here for today. Good, ground through the hands, step back into plank. Nice and strong in your planks. And with a slow, strong push, moving back into downward facing dog. Breathing here in your down dog. Inhale, sweep the right leg up for three-legged dog. Allow the hips to open and take that leg up nice and high. Bend your right knee and tip your heel towards your left sit bone and allow the hips to open. Just to there for now. Good. Square back to three-legged dog. Step forwards between the hands. Low lunge, ground your back knee down. And inhale, reach both arms up. Taking this into a little back bend. So remember that feeling, and you can feel it again. Hands onto ribs. Lifting up through the sides of the body. And then reaching up through your fingertips. Lifting through your chest. So you're not dumping and sinking into your lower back. But you're trying to feel that length in the spine as you reach up. And then feel more on your upper back as you just lift your chest. Beautiful. Drop your right arm to the side, take a little side stretch to the right. And inhale, reach arms up. Exhale, cactus arms with a little back bend. Inhale, arms up. Circle your hands behind you to interlace the fingers. Inhale, straighten the arms and lift your chest. Lovely. Inhale, arms reach up one more time. Exhale, hands to the mat. Tuck the back toe, straighten back knee, right leg up, three-legged dog. And back into downward facing dog. Let's feel that on the other side. Left leg rises up, three-legged dog. Bend the left knee and open the hip as you tip your heel over to the right sit bone. Square back to three-legged dog. And take a big step forwards into low lunge. Ground your back knee. And inhale, reach both arms up. Anjaneyasana, crescent moon pose. Reach up through the sides of your body. Feel that length. And then dropping left arm down to the side. A little side stretch to the left. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, cactus arms. Inhale, arms up. Circling your hands behind you, interlace your fingers. Inhale, lift the chest. Nice. Stretch those elbows as much as possible. And then inhale, reach arms up. Exhale, hands to the mat. Straighten back knee and sweep left leg back to three-legged dog. And round back into downward facing dog. Gazing to the top of the mat, walk, step, or jump to your hands. Inhale, hands to shins, halfway lift, really pressing the chest forwards. And exhale to forward fold, head relaxes fully here. Rise on up to standing as you inhale, sweep arms up. Reach up, feel that length again in the sides of the body. If it feels good, a little back bend on top. And then relaxing your arms down to your sides, rolling it out, and checking back into your body. Next, we're coming from chair pose. So bend in the knees, brushing fingertips across the ground. Sit your weight back into your heels, squat low. Inhale, reach arms up. Good. Circle your hands behind you, interlace your fingers, and inhale, lift your chest, little back bend in chair. Keeping the fingers interlaced, forward fold, and allow your arms to tip overhead. Now watch you're not overdoing it in the shoulders. Anyone that needs to release, please do. And then bring hands back down to the ground. Inhale to halfway lift, press your chest forwards. Exhale, round through the hands, step back into down dog. Sorry, plank to start, get your distance. And then with a slow, strong push, moving back into downward facing dog. And breathe. We sweep the right leg up for three-legged dog. Now those with shoulder issues, you're not gonna flip your downward dog, you're gonna stay here. Bend the knee to peel over, or option to stay here if this is enough. If shoulders are feeling happy, you can flip your dog, pushing over into a wild thing, pressing hips up to the ceiling, reaching top arm overhead. Take a breath, and flip back into three-legged dog. Big step forwards for high lunge. Right knee stacked over right ankle, and inhale, sweeping arms up. Again, feel that lifting out of the ribs, reaching up through the arms, little back bend. How high can you reach up? Dropping right arm down to the side, little side bend, and inhale, arms up. Exhale, cactus arms, lift your chest, and inhale, arms up. Circling the hands behind you, inhale to straighten arms, lift your chest, ground your back heel, And then forward fold for humble warrior pose, bringing your chest to the inside of the right knee, stretching those arms, and allowing the arms to tip overhead. Gently release, hands back to the ground, turn back into the ball of your back foot. Sweep back into three-legged dog, and back to downward facing dog. Good. On the other side, inhale, left leg sweeps up, three-legged dog. Watch your shoulders as you open the hip tip, heel over to the right sit bone. Stay here, or option to flip your downward dog. Good. Listen to your body, choose wisely. If you flip, press your hips over, up, inhale, and exhale, bring it back to three-legged dog. Big step forwards between the hands for high lunge. Squeeze thighs together for balance. Inhale, arms reach up. Reach up through the sides of your body. Feel that lifting out of the lower back. Dropping left hand down to the side, little side bend. And inhale, arms up. Exhale, cactus arms, little back bend. Inhale, arms up. Circling hands behind you, interlace fingers. Inhale, lift your chest. Ground the back heel. Humble warrior, forward fold. Releasing hands back to the mat. Turning back into the ball of your back foot. Sweep left leg up, three-legged dog. And move back into downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here to ground in your down dog. Gazing to the top of the mat, walk, step, or jump to your hands. Inhale, the halfway lift, press chest forwards. And exhale to forward fold, relax the head down fully. Rising on up to standing. Inhale, reach arms up, feel that length into the sides of the body. Little back bend on top. And then relax your arms down to your sides. And take a few breaths here to ground. Again, we sweep into chair, so brushing fingertips across the ground, sitting weight back into the heels, Utkatasana chair pose. Bring hands to heart center. Take a little twist to the right and hook your left elbow to your right outer thigh. Twisted chair. Good. Now weight onto your right foot. Left foot feels lighter as you stick your left foot back into a twisted lunge. Nice. Inhale, arms up, high lunge. Opening into warrior two. Ground the back heel. Open out warrior two and really press your right thigh out. So we're feeling that opening into the hip. Lean the shoulders back to stack shoulders over hips. Gaze forwards over your front hand. Inhale to straighten arms and legs up, star. Turn your feet to face forwards. And then turn your left foot out 90 degrees, right toes turn in. Take warrior two on the left side. And then into side angle pose. So either elbow on the thigh or fingertips to the ground. Sweep your right hand down to the floor. And then over in line with your ear. Find your version of side angle and twist your chest open. Lovely. Keep the lunge as you reverse your warrior, sweeping back. You can keep your arms in a normal reverse warrior, or if shoulders are happy, option to take that bind again, bringing fingertips to touch behind your back. Beautiful. Release and wiggle the arms to the back of the mat. And then facing the back of the mat, step back into downward facing dog. Breathing here in your down dog. Inhale, right leg up, three-legged dog. Big step forwards between your hands and turn to the side of your mat as you open out into a goddess squat. I'm just going to turn to face you. Good. Pressing both thighs out in your goddess. With cactus arms, lift your chest. Lovely. Inhale to straighten arms and legs. Star. Exhale, goddess squat. Press the thighs out, lift your chest. Inhale to straighten. Exhale, goddess squat. And one last time. Inhale to straighten arms and legs. Exhale, goddess squat with a little back bend. Beautiful. Inhale to straighten. We're going to turn back to face the front of the mat. All right, I switch legs, so I'm going to come back towards you. Left legs in front in a high lunge. Step forwards to cross right ankle over left thigh into figure four stretch. In standing figure four squat nice and deep, flex your right ankle. Option to stay here, move into your dancer's pose. Take your right hand back to hold your inner right ankle. Inhale, reach left arm up to the ceiling, lengthen through the spine. First, kick your thigh up nice and high, kick foot into hand. Create the shape of the back bend. You can stay here or begin to lean forwards and kick those toes higher up at the back. Make it about your back leg. Kick it up, kick it up. And when you're ready, squeeze thighs together to bring you back to standing and release Tadasana, mountain pose. Ground and come back to your breath. On the other side, we come into our twisted chair. You ready? Let's bend those knees, we Utkatasana. Bring hands to heart center. Take a twist to the left, hooking right elbow to your left outer thigh. Lean head back, twist chest open. Weight is on your left foot now. Right foot becomes lighter. Stepping back for your twisted lunge. Good. Inhale, arms up into high lunge. Reaching up. Warrior two, ground the back heel. Open out into your warrior two and focus on pressing your left thigh out. Leaning the shoulders to stack over the hips. Inhale, we straighten arms and legs, start pose. Swivel the feet to change sides. Right foot turns out 90 degrees. Take warrior two to the right. Moving into side angle, either elbow to thigh or hand to floor. Sweep your top hands to the mat and then over in line with the ear. Find your side angle pose and twist chest open. Keeping the lunge, reverse your warrior. Option to bind the hands, bringing fingertips to touch behind your back. Release to wimble the arms to the back of your mat and round back to downward dog, facing the back of the mat. Breathing in your down dog. Left leg reaches up, three-legged dog. Taking a step forwards between the hands. Coming up to goddess squat. Pressing both thighs out for that opening into the hips. Little cactus arms with the back bend. Inhale to straighten arms and legs. Star, exhale, goddess squat. Back bend, lift your chest. And with your breath, inhale to straighten. Exhale, goddess. One last time, inhale to straighten. Exhale, goddess squat with a little back bend. Beautiful. Inhale to bring it up. Pivot back to face the front of your mat. High lunge. Step forwards into figure four, crossing left ankle over right thigh. Squat nice and deep into those hips. Flex the left ankle, hands to heart center. Staying here, moving into your dancer's pose as we reach back to hold the left foot behind you. Right arm reaches up. First kicking your foot into your hand to create the shape of the bow. Stay here upright, or option to lean forwards and kick those toes up higher. Make it about the back leg. Kick toes up, toes up, toes up. And then slowly squeeze thighs together as you come back to standing. Feet together, Tadasana, mountain pose. Back to your breath. Back to center. And ground. Let's flow that out. Inhale, arms up, high mountain. Reach up, a little back bend on top of it feels good. Exhale, slow forward fold, coming all the way down. Fingers in line with toes, relax the back of your knee. Hands to shins for a halfway lift, exaggerate the lifting of your chest. And grounding hands to the mat. Step back into plank. Hold in your plank, nice and strong. Bring your knees to the ground. Let's see those kneeling chaturangas. As you look forwards, lean forwards. Slowly bend your elbows as you lower down onto your belly. Look forwards, move forwards as you lower. Forwards, 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 forwards. Lovely. Keep your hands under your shoulders. Inhale, baby cobra. Lift your chest. Squeeze your elbows down. Slowly release chest back down. And with a strong push yourself back to hands and knees. Back to downward facing dog. Right leg up, three-legged dog. Come into your pigeon pose. So remember, as we come into pigeon, take that right knee wide out to the side. Okay? So your right knee is wider than your right wrist. Okay? Your heel is towards your left hip. Okay? On a gentle diagonal line. And you're sitting your weight evenly on right and left sides of the pelvis. Once you feel comfortable here, lower down onto your elbows. For those with knee niggles, remember taking a block or a pillow underneath your right hip or right thigh, right bum will take the pressure off your knee. All right, forward fold and take a few breaths there to relax into those hips. Walk your hands over to the right and find a side stretch in your pigeon. And then gently back through center and walk hands over towards the left, finding that side stretch. Come back through center. Bring your left forearm parallel to the front of your mat and don't sink into that elbow. Press out of the shoulder and twist right hand up to the ceiling. Twisted pigeon. And then change sides, grab the right forearm and twist left arm up. Press out of that shoulder, don't sink into your shoulder, press down into your elbow. And slowly release. Come back up onto your hands. Okay, so here, shuffle your back leg back as much as possible. So you're really feeling grounded down through the hips. Bring your right hand to the middle of the mat and take your left hand back to hold your left foot in a quad stretch. Now, the more you shuffle that leg back, the more you can rest more on the top of your thigh and less so on your kneecap, which is helping you to feel more stable. Now, try not to slip off onto your right bum cheek here. You still got your hips level and balanced between both sides. See if your right hand can feel lighter. So you're just testing your stable base, which is the hardest part here. If it's impossible, a block under the bum helps a lot. Okay, we'll revisit this in a moment. Release, push back into downward facing dog. Rock forwards into plank. Option for full chaturanga or kneeling chaturanga. Slow lower down of your choice. If you feel up for it, upward facing dog or baby cobra. Good. And whichever version you've taken, slow, strong push back into downward facing dog. Beautiful. Let's feel that on the other side. Sweep left leg up, three-legged dog. Take that knee wide out to the side as you come into your pigeon. The wider the knee, the more stable the base. Yes. Now shuffle your back leg away from you. How far can you shuffle your right toes to the back of the mat? Beautiful. And now forward fold into your pigeon pose. The more you slide that back leg away, the easier it is to sit down through the hips. Walk your hands over to the left side and take a little side stretch in your pigeon. And then slowly back through center to the right side, little side stretch. Still trying to keep those hips fairly even. Good, come back through center. Bring your right forearm parallel to the front of the mat. Twist left hand up towards the ceiling, twisting in your pigeon. Don't sink on that bottom shoulder. Press down through the bottom elbow. Yes, that's it. And then swap sides and do that on the other side. Grounding through the forearm and twisting chest open. Beautiful. And then come back to center, come up onto your fingertips and sit up nice and upright in your pigeon. So here already, check that you can be balanced here without your hands. Yes, if you need to shuffle legs, then do so. Very nice. Okay. Bring your left hand to the middle of the mat, reach right hand back for right foot, find a quad stretch in your pigeon. Really drawing that heel towards you because you're going to need it for your mermaid pose. Be upright in your chest. So again here, don't sink into your back. Like we felt in our low lunge and high lunge, can you lengthen up and out of your ribs and the sides of your body? Maybe float your left hand forwards and test that you can balance yourself here. The more you shuffle the back leg away and rest on the thigh, not the knee, that's also very helpful. Hey, very nice, everyone. When you're ready, let's slowly release and take it back into downward facing dog. All right, so now we're all prepped and warmed up for mermaid. We've warmed up our shoulders, we've stretched our quads, and we've done some hip openers for that front leg. All right, ready for it? Let's go right leg up, three-legged dog. Take right knee wide out to the side and come into pigeon. Now don't rush this. If you got to get that base nice and balanced. So Nicole, take your right knee a bit wider if you like, on the outside of that right hand. Yes, so your knee's almost off the side of your mat. Yes. Now test here. Can you reach your arms up and balance on both sides of the pelvis? Hey, very nice. Excellent, everyone. Okay, now we're going to reach back for your back foot. Remember, the more you shuffle your back leg away, the easier it is. All right, now you can simply hold here in a quad stretch if this is enough. Okay, keep your weight even on the hips and float right arm up. So that's option one. Option two is to draw that back foot in a little bit closer and maybe connect your toes with your inner elbow. That's going to be like a very big quad stretch. Maybe you just stop here and reach right hand up. If you're all right and want to get this further, it doesn't really matter from this point on. No one cares. Go where is best for your body. Maybe you bind your hands. I'm impressed if you can balance here with your hands off the floor. That's a huge achievement. So explore whether the shape is working for you. Elaine, watch you not sitting too much on your right bum. See if you can sit a little bit more to the left side so your weight is even on both sides. Yes, like that. Nice, Matt. Nice, Amy. Nice, Alice. Beautiful, Marley. Nice, Laura. Miriam, awesome, everyone. That's it, Ruan. Ruan, flip your grip of your backhand and hold the inner arch of your back foot like dancer. Yeah, like that. That's going to bring it more into the right position. Beautiful. Yes, Michaela, whenever you guys are done, slowly push back down dog. Beautiful, mermaids. Very impressed. Stretch out for a few breaths. Yes, Elaine, that's better. More balanced on both sides. It's going to be better for your lower back in that back bend that you're not all on the one side. Okay. Stretch out and down dog. Do whatever you need to do. And then when you're ready, let's feel this on the other side. Left leg comes forwards into pigeon. And now remember, don't rush your base. Yes, Nicole, that front knee is nice and wide. That looks awesome. Can you feel the difference? It feels more stable. Good. All right, check here. Can you lift your hands off the floor? Have you got your legs in a happy position? Okay. And if you're good, then let's bend the back knee. Take hold of the back foot. Be wherever that's all right for you. And maybe you're lifting your left hand forwards and just checking that, okay, we're good. We can balance here. Nice. That's perfect. If you want to take it further, that foot can shuffle into your inner elbow if your quads are willing. Nice lift there, Ari. Nice base. I love that version. Stunning. And then maybe lifting the hand off. Maybe you want to work into full mermaid, wherever you are today. Nice, Nicole. Yay, nice, Michaela. Beautiful poses. Nice, Annalise. Now just try and lift that bottom hand so you can start to play with just feeling lighter. Yes, that's the trick. That's the trick. Wherever you are, take one more breath. Don't overdo it. Nice, Ari. I actually really love that version of the pose. That looks amazing. Back into down dog when you're ready. Well done, everyone. Woo, stretch it out in down dog. It's quite a strong pose. Take a few breaths. Just feel that lengthening in the spine as you push hips up. Yes, Ron, better hold of that back foot. See if you can slide your, Ron, stay there. See if you can shuffle your right knee back more. So you're more, yes, more back. That's it. And now lift your chest so your spine is upright. Yes, that's it. Slowly walk yourself forwards towards the top of the mat when you're ready. Take a gentle forward fold, release head down. And if you want to just shuffle your feet hip distance apart and hold your elbows almost like a ragdoll pose, feel free to. With a little sway from right to left can also feel quite nice. Bend the knees slightly, Ari, so you're not overly rounding that upper back. Yes, there we are. Good. Bend the knees and sweep into Utkatasana chair pose. Nice. Squat down all the way into a Malasana squat, opening knees apart. If this is uncomfortable for you, sit on your bum straight away. Otherwise, stay in Malasana and bring your hands to the floor and allow your back just to round and soften. If your elbows come towards the floor and that creates even more rounding for you, just feel that release into your back. Good. Slowly sit your bum back onto the floor and slowly come to lying on your back. Lying on your back, shuffle your feet hip distance apart. Arms just relaxed out to the sides. Your back may feel a little bit active after those back bends, so do a gentle twist from side to side. Good. Gentle windscreen wipers, knees side to side. So we slowly twist after back bending to help relax the muscles along the back. And it can feel really nice. Just slowly in your own time. Good. And then when you're ready, softly hug both knees into your chest and give yourself a nice big hug. And you can stay still here or a little rock from side to side to massage out your back into the mat. from here, lift your head and roll your nose to squeeze between your knees in a tight little compact ball and really feel the whole back pressing and rounding into the mat. Hold your right knee and stretch your left leg forwards like this. Keep your nose squeezing towards your right knee. Yes. And then change legs, bring knees together and swap, and then bring your nose towards your left knee and squeeze it in nice and tight, pushing your back into the floor. Bring both knees together, curl up in a tight little ball one more time, and then release your head back onto the ground. Straighten your legs along the floor and release. So moving towards our Shavasana, if your back still feels very active, you can take the pillow underneath your thighs or any kind of rolled mat or roller or support, anything you have. Otherwise, with knees bent, like Miriam does, and knock knees together is also a lovely way to keep the back relaxed. If your body needs anything else before your Shavasana, please feel free to indulge. And when you're ready, make sure that you're comfortable and allow yourself to let go. We are recording. Okay, so from page 136, we're going into back bends. All right, so why did we do this lunge in our back bend sequence today? What does it help to do? What's stretching, what's working, what's happening? Yes, so Sheena is showing us the thighs over there. Our quads are stretching. Yes, Amy?
Your hip flexor.
Your hip flexor, yes. Absolutely. So your back leg is behind you into hip extension, all right? So last night when we did all the forward folds, we were doing a lot of hip flexion, bringing the chest towards the thigh and the thigh towards the chest. In back bends, often we're doing sometimes both in this case, but we're doing a lot of hip extension. The leg is going behind us, right? So we're stretching your hip flexors, the front of your hip, and your quads, all right? And we always pretty much, for all back bends, we're stretching the front of the body. So in order for us to go back, right? Does that make sense? So if we're sequencing for a back bend sequence pretty much all the time, you're spending quite a bit of time doing some lunges to stretch out your hip flexors and your quads. Okay, so this lunge is also a back bend in itself. You felt when we were in the pose, how we were lifting up through the sides of the body and then feeling that reaching up through the arms and then leaning back. Okay, so it's also such an awesome pose to experience, like we were talking with Elaine, that lengthening up through the spine so that you're not sitting into your lower back and compressing more, but that you're lengthening up and then back. Okay, could we look at the curves of the spine? Okay, you know your spine's in that little S curve like that. It's very easy to back bend in your lower back, right? And it's very easy to bend in your neck backwards like this. But it's not so easy to do that in your upper back, right? Why do you think it's harder to do spinal extension in your upper back, your thoracic spine? Just throwing it out there. What's there? Yes, Clara?
Or shoulders.
Yes. You have big shoulder blades, big bones that are in your back, which are also going to get a bit in the way. And then what else have we got around our upper back?
Rib cage.
Ribs. Exactly. So, and the reason why we have this little rib cage is protecting your heart and your lungs. And it's kind of stopping you from bending too much into your back, because we would if we could, and squeeze into those vital organs. Okay, so it's harder to access your upper back in a back bend. All right, and also postural reasons we were talking about last night. If you spend a lot of time behind a desk and rounding in your back, we're not going to be very familiar with then going backwards in our upper back. So it's often a little bit stiffer. So by lifting and lengthening out of the lower back, we're trying to get more movement into the upper back. All right, we're trying to think of bending more in your upper back than in your lower back, because it's going to be easy to bend from your lower back. Think of how much you can lift in your chest and move more from your upper back, because that area is a little bit harder to access. Does that make sense? The idea for all back bends is an even arch in the spine. Okay, not bending more on the lower back and sitting into the lower back, but trying to get a congruent curve. So if you're looking at like full wheel pose, that you're in a nice little rainbow shape in the back. Whether you're in a back bend in a lunge, whether you're in a back bend lying on your tummy, or in a dancer's pose, but that you've got a nice even arc through the spine. Does that make sense? You're not dropping your head back and breaking that arc. You're not sitting into your lower back and only bending in your lower back and not accessing that upper back. We're trying to make it a nice even curve. Okay, so that's our theme for back bends overall. Make sense? Any questions before we go on? You will feel your back, all right? Those are also muscles, and they also need to be strong. I think it's very important for us to strengthen our backs, especially if you spend a lot of time rounding, okay? So don't make it too tight for your back. If you need to come out of the poses at any point, of course, listen to your body. I'm going to show you quickly, and then I also want to look at some of the other lunges as well after this. So Anjaneyasana, crescent moon pose is often what it's called in English. Anjaneyasana or crescent moon. So it's kind of making that moon shape, okay? Or low lunge with a back bend is also perfectly fine. Okie dokie. So when we come into the pose, back leg is moving back into hip extension, front leg is in hip flexion, okay? And I'm lunging into the pose. So I'm feeling stretch through hip flexor and quad, as you said. From here, we're reaching up through the arms, and we're trying to feel that lift through the sides of the body, reaching up and lean back. Okay, I'm trying not to just sink into my back and then reach up, right? It's about getting that lift and back. And then if you can, lunging deeper into the hips. Okay, and because sometimes in this pose we lunge really deep, and for those that maybe have extra mobility, sometimes the knee goes a little bit past the ankle. And that's also okay to allow for a little bit of a deeper lunge in Anjaneyasana and low lunge with the back bend. Okay, main emphasis here, lifting up and back. Okay, want to give it a go? So from your plank into downward facing dog, just go slowly, understand the lifting up and back, but if you're feeling a bit tired, just take it slow. When you're ready to step the right foot forwards, ground your left back knee, and then inhale, reach both arms up. I really like the adjustment of placing your hands on your ribs and then feeling that lift through the sides of your body, and then continuing that lift as you reach arms up. Yes. And then lunge deep into the front leg as you reach up and back. Beautiful. Try not to sink into your lower back. See how much you can lift up through the spine, and then lift more into your chest, in your upper back. I like the feeling of pushing my shoulder blades into the back to lift the chest. Arms in line with ears, reaching up through those fingertips, lunging deep into the hips. Beautiful. Nice, everyone. And notice your knee may go past your ankle. It's very common in this pose. That's fine. Release back to down dog. And when you're ready, feel that on the other side. Okay. Left foot is stepping forwards. Ground your right back knee down. And then inhale, reach arms up. You can feel the ribs if you like. Ribs lifting up, and then sides of the waist lengthening as you reach up through those arms. Feel what happens now if you don't reach up. Sink into your lower back, just like that, just slouch. And then try lean back. It actually restricts you. It makes it harder. It doesn't make it easier. The more you reach up and then lean back, the further back you go because you're creating space. Yeah, and then Alice, go for it. If it feels fabulous, lean back, go for it. If your back is happy to, amazing, beautiful. And release back to down dog. Yay. And then take a little child's pose and just kind of release that all out. Great. And then when you're ready, I'm going to flip it back to low lunge and lizard pose as well, which are also in your manuals. Just while we're on the lunging discussion, just because we've been so busy with all the other ones. If you want to flip back for a moment towards the front of your book again, you will find low lunge and lizard, just while we're on the subject. I'm finding it, I'll be there in a sec.
48.
48, thank you so much. Okay, page 48. Again. So we have low lunge and lizard pose as well. So we've got all sorts of lunges we can do when it comes to stretching that back hip flexor and back quad. Okay. So when we look at these, low lunge can be done with the back knee off the floor or with the back knee on the floor. It kind of depends what you're teaching and where you're going, right? If you're rocking back into a half split, obviously it's nice to have that back knee on the ground. If you're moving from low lunge into, say, a pyramid pose, it's easier to have the back knee then off the ground. So it kind of depends on where you're heading. Both are fine. And then we'll look at lizard pose as well. And lizard is where your foot is on the outside of your hand. So there's a little bit more external rotation in the hip. Useful for things when we teach things like crow pose, and your knee is on the outside of your upper arm. Okay, so I'm going to show you, and then we'll look and explore those two lunges as well. So again, if I'm coming from my plank into downward facing dog, okay, I'm stepping the foot forwards, okay. So in low lunge, knees over ankle, we've done this quite a lot in our classes. On the fingertips helps to keep the lift in the chest. Back knee can be down on the floor, and I can just hold here in this lunge. Remember today we did a little extra twist here. You can do an extra quad stretch here. You can even do the pose more upright with a tucked tailbone to access a little bit more of a different stretch in your hip flexors and quads. Okay, so you can do this in loads of different ways, depending on what you want from it. And you can also do it with your back knee off the floor in a low lunge. Okay, just depending on where you're heading, where you're going. In lizard pose, you step your foot to the outside of your hand. Okay, so your foot is on the outside of your hand when you're coming to your lizard lunge. So in lizard pose, if my foot is on the outside of my hand, is a quite a nice place to either allow that knee to drop out to the side if I'm wanting a little bit more stretch for the inner thighs and inner groins. Remember in our crow sequence, we actually squeeze that knee into the upper arm to feel the connection of your knee to your upper arm. Okay, so in your lizard lunge, you could also, again, have that knee off or on the floor, and you could also lower to the ground in lizard, which is often taught really nice and deep. Of course, you can also add on extra twists and extra quad stretches in lizard pose. Okay, so let's do those two while we're at it. Come from plank into down dog. And we can explore all these different ways of lunging. So from down dog, stepping right foot forwards. Between the hands, we'll start with low lunge. So here, you can bring your back knee off the floor. See how that feels. It's kind of more active, more kind of strength-based. I quite like to rock forwards and back there as well. It's quite a nice place to just kind of feel into the hips. Okay, and then you can lower your knee to the ground and see how that feels. Here, It doesn't matter if your back foot is tucked or if your back foot is flexed. One might feel better than the other for your knee, and that would be the only slight difference. Okay, then you could ground your left hand and twist right hand up, which feels lovely in this lunge. So you could do a twisted low lunge. And then you could also reach that hand back and hold your back foot like we did in the class today. If you don't want to do any more of those, I understand. So it was a lovely way to stretch into quads. And then you can also come upright, so bring your torso upright, and then tuck your bum. Tuck your bum. So you they call this like a 90-90. Your front leg's at 90 degrees, your back leg's at a 90 degrees, like a little zigzag. And then you'll feel that stretch a bit differently, which is also quite cool. So different ways of stretching depending on what you want. Okay. And then you can release and feel that on the other side. Left foot steps forwards and explore low lunge with the back leg straight. And also notice here, be on your fingertips, feel how your chest is more lifted. And then also do flat hands and feel how your chest may be more dropped. I prefer fingertips to keep that sense of lift in the chest. Okay, and then with the back knee down, maybe see how that feels different. Explore a little twist. And then also explore the upright version and a quad stretch if you like. Loads of stuff you can do here. Again, it depends what you're sequencing for and who you're doing it with would kind of customize how you would like to teach this pose and where you're heading. So if you're doing a half split, you'll do it with the back knee down. If you're moving into pyramid, you would do it with the back knee up. All right, let's try lizard now. So when you're ready, back into your down dog. And then step right foot to the outside of your right hand. So your foot's going to be almost off the edge of your mat. Okay. And again, back knee straight. You can do it more active and squeezing that knee against your shoulder, which I quite like the feeling of. And then you can also do it with your back knee down. Back foot can be tucked or flat, whatever feels best for you. And then option to lower down onto your elbows, which is kind of where we most likely head with lizard. We're often doing it for the stretch now in your inner thigh and inner groin. Can you feel that? Allow your right foot to roll out to the side a little bit. So your big toe is going to leave the floor and the sole of your foot is going to roll open. That is going to deepen that inner thigh and inner groin stretch, especially if you're doing this pose for a sequence where you want that external rotation. It's an awesome prep pose. Okay, you can add on quad stretches here. You can add on those same twists if you like, whatever felt good. And when you're ready, feel that on the other side. Left foot forwards into lizard. If you step that foot to the outside of your hand straight away, Annalise, then you don't have to move your hands. So you just step it a little bit wider. So it's wider than hip distance. Yes, perfect. Okay, back leg straight, back knee on the floor. You can also be on your elbows and keep your back leg straight. Especially if people feel that there's a lot of pressure on the knee, it's quite nice to have that back leg off the floor the whole time. So you've got loads of options. And then you can allow that knee to open out to the side and the left big toe to lift off the ground for an added external rotation, deepening of that stretch. You can twist, you can quad stretch. Yeah. Also quite fun to step forwards into Malasana here, a wide-legged Malasana, because your foot is turned out, then you can step forwards, and that's also quite a cool transition. And then you can swap legs through a Malasana as well, which is also quite fun, which we do in the arm balance sequence. So that just brings in a different transition and a different way of playing with those shapes. Alrighty, and then when you're done, you can come and have a seat and let me know if you have any questions around low lunge with a back bend, low lunge, back leg straight, bend, whatever, and lizard pose. So your back legs are working hard today. Last night it was all about hamstrings. Today it's all about hip flexors and quads. Are we feeling okay with those poses? Nicole?
Hi, I just wanted to comment. I feel better in lizard than I do in low lunge. Sometimes my boobs get in my knee.
Absolutely. Lizard is awesome. I'm also much preferring a lizard at the moment. I'm with you. Lizard with that leg just being out to the side gives you much more space that your chest or your tummy doesn't hit your front thigh. So it feels awesome. Totally agree. And it's awesome to note these kind of things. So if you have students that are maybe struggling and just feel like my knee is hitting my chest, then just say, well, take the knee a little bit wider to give you more space if that works better for your body. Just awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Okie dokie, are we feeling all right with
Can I
that?
have a question before we go on?
Yes, who's talking?
So
Yes,
when you
Sarah. Hi,
so
Sarah.
when you say take the knee out, it feels better. Do you then move your foot with, or is it uneven?
Are we talking like with Nicole, or are we talking about lizard pose? So either you can shuffle your foot a bit wider, or you can just allow that knee to be a bit more open. Kind of depending on what felt best for you. Both is totally fine. I would say shuffle the foot a little bit if you wanted to kind of keep that knee tracking over the ankle. Might feel a bit weird, just the knee going off, but it might also be fine. So I guess it depends on the body. Thanks, Clara. All righty. And then moving back into our back bend, so flipping back into page 136 was where we started a little bit a while ago. So I'm flipping forwards and backwards with you guys. Okay. So we went through our low lunge with the back bend, and our theme for all these back bend is an even congruent curve through the spine, lifting out of the lower back and reaching up. Okay. So next we're going to talk about, let's do reverse plank. So I'm going to skim over upward facing dog. I'm going to come back to that one in a little bit. The next one is Purvottanasana, reverse plank. Okay. So this can be quite a tough pose. Where do you think it's stretching? What is it working? Yes, Ruan's pointing. Everybody, if you've done this pose, you know how much it stretches into your pecs, right? Okay, so I mean, perfect for a pose like we were doing today, taking that arm back for mermaid, to stretch out the pecs in order to take your arm back into extension, okay? When your arm goes back behind you, just like the legs, we call that shoulder extension. It's the same as when you hold your back foot in dancer's pose, your arm has gone back into shoulder extension. So this would be a good prep pose for anything where you're taking your arms back. Okay. So in this pose, take note of the hands as well, pointing forwards towards the hips, which can also be quite tricky for the shoulders and the wrists. So you've got options to turn your hands out a little bit as well. I will show you the pose and then we'll do it all together. So we start in a seated position in Dandasana, which we'll talk about just now. It's kind of like seated Tadasana. Legs are in front of you, feet are together, sitting up nice and tall. We step the hands back. All right, so your hands aren't too close to you. You need to take your hands back about a hand's distance or more. Okay, so you start with your arms back on a little bit of a diagonal, so that when you push up, then your shoulders will rock over your wrists. Okay, so you need to take your hands back a bit. Now, here, I think it's great before you even lift your hips, is you can get a fantastic stretch just by lifting your chest, first of all. And this can be a perfect pose just as is. Okay, so really make sure that your chest is lifted and you rolled your shoulders back before even entering the pose. And then from here, we point the toes and you keep your big toes together. Okay, so feet are working quite hard in this as well. And then we lift through the hips, push through the hands and point the toes towards the floor, and I'm going to lift my chest. Big thing here is the head, all right? The golden rule is neck in line with spine. So I'm not going to drop my head back and scrunch my neck. You're going to feel the front of your neck muscles working quite hard to keep your head in line with your spine. So you're gazing to the ceiling, but you're not dropping your head back. So it is harder, I won't lie to you, it's harder to keep your head up than it is to drop it back. You're using your neck flexors, which are also muscles, which are good to also be strong. Want to give it a go? Watch those with shoulder things, just take it easy today. Let's go seated with your legs out in front of you. Feet are together. And then from there, take your hands back. So your hands aren't next to your hips. You're going to take your hands back a little bit further, about hands distance or more. And then don't have your hands too narrow, especially the guys. You might want to broaden your hands a little bit to give you more space in the shoulders. Yeah, Ari, that looks good. Quite a strong wrist pose here. So Clara, be mindful of that with your wrists as well. Okay. Now don't even lift your hips. Just lift your chest and roll your shoulders back. Can you feel this pose is working for you here already without needing to go anywhere? So Ruan, you're going to straighten your legs, point your toes down towards the floor. Okay. And keep your big toes together. In this pose, it's very common for the feet to want to roll out to the sides. Keep those big toes touching. Now you can just do the pose here if your shoulders have been niggly and you've had enough today. Or from here, now press your hips up. Those with hyperextended knees, like Nicole, starts with her knees a little bit bent, and that might feel more comfortable. So here, don't drop your head back. You're looking to the ceiling. Puff your chest up, like really lift your chest. That's the most important thing. And then Sheena, see if you can lift those hips a little bit higher. Thank you. And then it's quite strong, so lower at any point and release. Okay, wrists. So some of you are probably going, my wrists. You can have your hands turned out a little bit. So if that was an issue for you, try that again with the hands slightly turned out. That's it, Ruan, nice. Puff your chest up before you go. That's it, Annalise. Nice chest, but watch your head. There you are, Annalise. Perfect pose. Yes, Marley, that looks better with the hands turned out. You're able to lift more. Nice pose there, Lara, when you were up. That looked good. Good, that's it. Watch your lane. Don't drop your head back. That's it, Alice. Nice. Beautiful. Yes, Clara. And then slowly release and lower. Nice, Ari. Ari, you probably could have started with your hands a little bit further back. They're a bit close to you. And just feel that out in your wrists. Yes, but really nice lift in the chest and hips. Fantastic. Now point your toes and keep your big toes together. Yeah, well, often the feet go off on their own tangent there. All right. Yes, Matt. That looks fantastic. Nice lift in the chest. The main purpose of this pose is to lift your chest. Amy, you need to have your hands back a little bit further back. They're a bit close to your hips. Yes. So then when you come up, your shoulders go over your wrist. Yeah, there you are. Can you feel that's better? And then watch the head. Good. If your neck is really uncomfortable in this, just look forwards towards your feet, and that'll be the easiest for the neck. All right, quite an uncomfortable pose, but a good one to strengthen arms and feel that opening across the chest and pecs. Questions? Okay, so quite a few of you need to take your hands a little bit further back, so be aware of that. Make a note of that when you come into the pose. Big thing there is the head. So I know in a lot of yoga classes, especially styles like Bikram, encourage the dropping back of the head, right? And we need to be really careful of that. Because, first of all, we're looking again at most posture types that we will be seeing as teachers, is there's rounded shoulders and then their neck is already scrunched like this for like 8-9 hours a day, right? And then they come to yoga and then they're doing that again, all right? Your neck is very mobile, okay? Your neck can do all sorts of movements, it's very flexible, which means it may not be the most stable position, may not the most stable, strong structure. So when we do poses like this and things like camel pose, anything where it feels good to drop the head back, good, not really, we're putting a lot of pressure into the vertebra and into the discs of our neck, okay? And your head is very heavy, okay, on a very delicate, not too delicate, but a very mobile structure, okay? Feel what happens if you place your hands on your neck here. You can feel this big bony protrusion, all right? The top one, a little sticky outy bone, T1. Okay, we're all a bit different though, so it might change. Go up just a little bit from there, maybe just one vertebra, like one finger up. And then feel when you take your head back, how you scrunch that area and that vertebra almost pushes all the way forwards and like disappears. Can you feel? It's actually a little bit creepy. So when you drop your head back, most of the movement is occurring at one point in the neck over there, and putting a lot of weight, a lot of load onto one little vertebra, okay? I mean, you do it now, it's gonna be fine, but if you do it repetitively over time, it might not be so good for your neck, okay? So, and especially for the students that we're teaching that are already putting a lot of pressure on their neck, not good to drop the head back, okay? We need to stop this dropping of the head, neck in line with spine. So the neck follows wherever the spine is going, and that is safe for the neck. Does that make sense? Okay. And we'll see it a lot. You'll catch yourself doing it, but you also see your students doing it a lot, is scrunching neck. And then they walk out of the class and go, geez, that yoga class, it just makes my neck sore, and they'll blame you. So you have to remind people to not scrunch the neck, not drop the head back, relax the head in forward folds, and not scrunch it in back bends. Okay, I've done a lot of talking. Any questions? Nicole?
Hi, sorry for the modification for the lumbar injury with the bend knees in tabletop position.
Yes.
Are you expected to have 90 degrees, or are you still supposed to like keep your legs out?
Well, if you can do it fast, they're seeing as you're right there on your mat. Nicole's going to start with her knees bent. She places her hands in the same position. Okay, a little bit further back, maybe a bit, Nicole, with your hands. And take your hands a little bit wider off to the sides of the mat so you're a bit broader. Yes, that's going to make space. Spread your fingers nice and wide. Lift your chest. Ground your feet so your feet are on the floor. And feet hip distance apart. Bend your knees a little bit closer. We're going to do the bent knee version. Yeah, okay. I'm making you do it all now. And then push your hips up towards the ceiling. So this is a bent knee version of our reverse plank. And Nicole's brought her neck into the perfect position. And then she's going to lower her hips back down. And then if you want to do it with straight, but your knees are quite bendy, start with your legs a little bit straighter. Okay? And then when you push down, push the back of your heels into the floor and then lift up. And then you can just kind of control now pushing to straighten the legs or walking the feet out a little bit so that you can control how much your back of your knees are going back. Now point your toes, big toes together, and then that would be perfect. Yes, gorgeous pose. See her lovely lift in the chest? That's what we want. Thanks, Nicole. So when you enter the pose, starting with a little bit of a bend in the knees, maybe we started a little bit too bent. Okay, a little bit straighter would have been ideal. And that will just give you that control as you push up, that you don't feel too funny behind the knees. Is that what you were asking? I just made you do a whole lot of stuff as well. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so if we're happy to move along then, these two last poses are all in your assessment. We're going to flip to the next page and we're going to go through Cobra Pose, Bhujangasana, and Shalabhasana Locust Pose. These are two baby back bends. Okay, these are very active back bends. So they're not a huge range of movement. It's not a huge back bend, but because you're lifting from the floor and away from gravity, your back muscles are working strongly, which is really good for them. Really good ways to strengthen your back. Really good for our beginners to get that strength and also for that upper back postural muscles. Okay, so these are hard, but they're really, really good. Okay, so we use the cobra quite a lot in our sun salutations, especially the modified one where we don't do upward dog just yet, but we do cobra. So we'll use this quite a lot. Again, neck. I'm going to watch, especially in your assessment, that you do not scrunch your neck. Because if you go out there and demonstrate like this, then all your students are going to also scrunch their necks. Okay, so a big awareness around lengthening the back of your neck in these two poses. You're going to watch yourself. It's very hard not to. You have to be very conscious of it. Okay. So I'm going to modify this one a little bit. So don't mind me. And we know some people feel there's a lot of pressure on their pelvis, their pubic bone or their hip bone. So sometimes padding is awesome, but you probably won't need as much padding as me. So don't mind the bolster. Okay. So normally we've come down from a chaturanga. Okay. My hands are underneath the shoulders. My legs and feet are hip distance apart. And I'm going to curl the chest off the mat. Again, the neck, everyone wants to look up like this. Watch for that. Drop the chin and lengthen the back of the neck. Right, elbows are squeezing in. And what a really nice cue here is without actually moving your hands are on the floor, think of pulling your hands down. You'll feel how that brings your shoulder blades down and together, and also switches on your tricep muscles really nicely. Okay, hands underneath shoulders, and you're going to pull down. And just with that one instruction, it actually brings you into the perfect pose. Okay, so let's give that a go. The main focus here is the upper back. So let's come from kneeling or full chaturanga onto your belly. Or just come to lying down if you're tired. Here you will land most of the time with hands underneath shoulders. So if you've come from a full chaturanga, your hands may be actually further back, but it is okay. If you've come from a kneeling chaturanga, hands are normally underneath your shoulders. Okay. Lie on your belly for a moment there. Your feet are hip distance apart. Your toes are pointed and reaching back behind you, and your legs are active. So your knees are going to be lifted off the floor. Quads are active. Can you feel that? Quite a nice sensation to push down into the tops of your feet as well. So there's that activation from the base. Now, don't think of doing much. Just think of pulling your hands down. Don't actually move your hands. Your hands are stuck on the mat. Pull your hands down towards your waist and allow that to begin curling your chest off the floor. Yes. I really like that instruction. Can you feel how it works your triceps? It's brought your shoulder blades down and together and brought your chest up. Okay. Now neck, watch Miriam, drop your chin just a little bit. Yes. Curl your chest just off the floor. So it's not very high. So Ari, you can come down a little bit. Your elbows are bent. Yes, that's the difference in Cobra. Elbows are bent as opposed to up dog, elbows are straight. A fun test here is you can lift your hands off the floor. You may have felt that in yoga classes to check that you're not just pushing with your hands, but that you're using your upper back muscles to lift your chest. And then relax, hands under your forehead, just soften for a moment. You can feel it's very active in your back. Quite tiring, but good strengthening. Do that one more time. So hands underneath shoulders. Just think of dragging your hands back to lift your chest. Your shoulder blades are drawing down and together. Your elbows are gently hugging in, and the back of your neck is long. Legs are active with the tops of the feet pushing into the ground. Lift the chest, and then slowly lower down. Of course, you could curl this up a little bit higher if that's what you wanted to. So if you like, you can curl it up a little bit higher. If your back is tired, just relax now, don't overdo it. You can then push into your hands a little bit more so you're up a bit higher, but your elbows are going to remain a bit bent. So yes, that's it. And again, the main idea around this pose is shoulders. So shoulders down and together, whatever height you're at. And then relax and push into child's pose, wherever you feel comfortable to relax your back for a few moments. you'll feel your back muscles are working hard, which is very good. Your lower back is also involved in that back bend because it's kind of all attached. So if you are bending backwards, you are bending from your pelvis through your lower back and your upper back. Everything is moving together. It's a very Pilates thing to think of tucking your bum and not allowing a lower back bend. But the idea is that it's all attached and it's moving together. Okay, whatever you need to do to release your backs. And when you're ready, you can come and have a seat and let me know if you have any questions. Shoulders. Shoulders are your main focus here. Shoulders are moving down and shoulder blades are moving together. That is the main focus of the pose. That's why I like that instruction of pulling the hands down, because it does all of that with saying less words. Any questions? You can take a little twist as well if you're feeling like, oh, my back is like, oh, on fire. Little twist also helps to relax your back muscles after these kind of things. Okay. We all okay? I just made you tired, so I'm getting quieter and quieter. Elaine?
Thanks. Yeah, that was the most intense cobra I've ever done. I just wanted to ask, were we supposed to go higher up into, because I just see on the same page as the Sphinx. We were just doing the cobra then.
So it depends on what you're teaching. So in a basic sun salutation, baby cobra is perfect, just to get the shoulders in the right place. Then you can lift up higher, so a bigger cobra. But your students need to have that awareness of what they're doing with their shoulders, because what tends to happen is you push up, your shoulders end up doing this, and we've kind of lost the whole idea of the pose. And then Elaine's reminded me, there's also Sphinx pose, which is on your elbows. Do you want to try it, Elaine? So Elaine's going to lie on her tummy for us. And she's going to be on her elbows. So this is often taught like in yin yoga. They often use this pose. So her elbows come forward, so her elbows are underneath her shoulders. So Elaine, come up onto your forearms like this. Even more. So look at me. Yeah, pop your elbows even more forward. Shuffle hands more forwards. Yes. Even a touch more, so elbows are underneath shoulders. Perfect. So here you can push into your hands, which can feel a little bit more supportive. It's slightly more passive because you've got the push of your arms to hold you there instead of having to do it using your back. How does that feel, Elaine? And she keeps her neck beautifully in line with her spine. And that's also a nice way to do little back bends and then relax. Thanks, Elaine. And that would be Sphinx pose. Annalise? Thanks, Elaine.
If you look in your manual, the picture on the left-hand side is that down dog, upward facing dog.
So in the manual, let me just call up the new one quickly here. Sorry, because I just want to make sure that I have the right one with you. So upward facing dog, the difference between cobra and up dog is cobra elbows are bent, whether you've lifted your head up quite high or not. And in upward dog, your legs and your back, your arms are straight and your legs off the floor. Let me just find the picture just so I make sure I'm referencing correctly. Sorry, Annalise.
This one, the legs are on the floor. So,
so basically, yeah, both of them are cobra. The picture on the right-hand side is baby cobra, like you've just done now. And then the one on the left-hand side where she's lifted up higher is still cobra. Her elbows are bent and her hips and her thighs are on the floor. So that's just a big version of cobra. Both are still cobra pose. And the difference is up dog, your legs will be off the floor and your arms will be fully straight. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty close to upward dog though, Annalise. So it's pretty close. It's a very big cobra. Most of the time we'll be teaching the baby cobra. Okay. We'll talk about upward dog in a moment and then we'll feel the big changes Okay. Any other questions with Bhujangasana cobra pose? Okay, so next we have locust pose, Shalabhasana. Okay, Clara, you on your tummy there. I'm going to make you do it just because of I'm a little bit disabled for these ones at the moment. Clara's lying on her tummy and her feet are hip distance apart. She's going to extend her arms straight back towards her sides. Yes, palms are facing her thighs and she's going to lift her head and her chest like she's done, but also lift her legs off the ground. Yes, with straight legs, she's reaching back through her toes, palms are facing thighs and she's lifting her chest and squeezing shoulder blades together. That's beautiful. And her neck, can you see, is beautifully in line with her spine. Stunning pose, just like that. And then she can release and relax. Thank you, Clara. Beautiful locust pose. So the difference here is that you are lifting your feet as well. In Cobra, we kept the feet on the floor. So there's a little bit more work from your bum, your glutes and your hamstrings to lift those legs up, okay? There's a little bit more work then coming from the lower back, which is also good. And the arms are back into shoulder extension, and you're going to squeeze those shoulder blades together. You want to give it a go? Don't hold for too long if your back is tight. These are very active back bends. Small, but fierce. You're lying on your tummy. Your feet are hip distance, but you could also do it with your feet together. Feel the difference, okay? Lift your head, hands, and feet off the ground. If your feet are together, it's a bit harder, but some like it. If your feet are apart, it gives you more space and your legs generally will lift higher. Palms face your thighs. So turn those hands to face your legs, yes. And squeeze your shoulder blades together and lift your arms up so triceps are active. Good. Can you feel the whole back line of your body is working? Now don't scrunch your neck, Elaine. Lengthen the back of the neck. Miriam, turn your hands to face your thighs a little bit more. Other way. Yes, so thumbs are down to the floor, baby fingers to the ceiling. And then release and relax. Oh, okay, just relax your back for a moment. Put your hands under your forehead, big toes together, heels apart, just relax. So in that one, stay relaxed. Your hands are facing your thighs, so thumbs are pointing down to the floor, baby fingers to the ceiling. In the picture, it may look slightly different. Kind of depends what you're teaching, what you want to teach it for. Could you feel the difference when your legs lift up, how you're getting more work from the lower part of the body, which is awesome. And the big emphasis here is to squeeze your shoulders, again, as the main focus in these back bends. Shoulders, blades together and down. Reach back through your fingers and toes. Nice pose there, Belinda. Yes, Ari. Now, see how much more you can open your chest, Ari. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. Collarbones open. Yes. Now, lengthen the back of the neck just a little bit, Ari. Drop your chin slightly. Yes. Now you can feel the tensions out of your neck and made it more about the upper back. Nice pose, Ari. Yes, Matt. That looks fantastic. Matt, you can lift your chest a little bit more. Yeah, there you are. Perfect. Nice, Laura. Yes. That's it, Ruan. Perfect. And then push to child's pose. That's it, Amy. Looking good. Whatever you need to release your back. Better with the hands there, Miriam. Keep your hands facing your thighs. Almost like you're going to smack the sides of your legs. Yes, like that. You've got it. You've got it. Beautiful. And then relax your backs. Well done. Coming to a seated position, take just a gentle twist from side to side to release all of that out. I want to just talk about one more back bend, and then that'll be done with the back bends for the day because whew, we've done a lot. Any questions around Shalabhasana, locust pose? All of these poses, shoulders, big shoulder placement awareness, and lengthen the back of the neck. Those will be the main points I'll be checking. Okay. Cool. Okay, Lane hand was going up and then down. She's good. All right. And Elise, your hand is up, but I think that's from earlier on.
Oh, no.
Okay, cool. Just checking. Okay, everyone, one more back bend. Okay, and if you, this is not too much of a bad one. Okay, we're going to look at bridge. So flip forwards a few pages and you will find Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, just a fancy name for bridge pose. So this is an awesome prep pose for full wheel. It's basically got the same legs as full wheel pose. Okay. I also really like to teach this pose after doing a whole lot of forward bends. This is a really nice baby back bend to kind of just counter pose bending forwards. So it's a lovely pose to do at the end of a sequence as well. When we lift up in this pose, what muscles are lifting the hips? Yes, Ron. Your bum, your glutes, your bum muscles are lifting the hips. Okay, so nice activation for the back of the legs and hamstrings as well. Glutes and hamstrings are doing the work. So also a huge benefit of this pose, because we always want to stretch out our glutes and stretch out our hamstrings, but when are we strengthening them as well? Okie dokie. So in bridge, another thing to be mindful of is your neck. So if you take the bind, I'm just going to show you whilst upright because it's easier to see. If you interlace your fingers behind your back, and then what tends to happen, the next thing you want to do is pull down. You tend to pull down and then jam your chin into your chest, and you end up flattening your neck onto the floor. So I'm going to say when you're there, and I'll show you, you're going to tuck shoulders underneath you and then just push through your upper arms without pulling your arms down and jamming your chin to your chest. So something you can be aware of in this pose. Clara saying the feet. It's tough with those feet together in Shalabhasana. Hey, Clara, I know. I'm just seeing your comment now. Much harder. Okay, so I will show you your bridge, and I'm also going to show you a full wheel, just because it's the option. You have the option to go into full wheel if you want to. Okay, so we can just kind of explore that pose a little bit, but we'll discuss it again later on when we do big back bends. Okay. So for bridge position, we lie on the back with the feet hip distance apart. All right. Arms are down to the sides. And often you see in classes to pull the feet really close towards you. You really don't need to do that. Feet underneath the knees is perfectly fine. Toes pointing forwards. And then we press the hips up into bridge. Okay. So now the neck. Again, don't jam your chin into your chest. Keep your gaze straight to the ceiling and keep the natural curve of the neck. If you interlace the fingers, you can roll off and tuck one shoulder, roll over and tuck the other shoulder, and then just push down through your arms to lift the chest without doing this. Okay, so check in with your neck here. The legs are all the same as you push into full wheel pose. Being up on the toes can feel really nice, all right? And you always have the option to move into your full wheel from bridge in your assessment, but it's not essential, okay? Full wheel pose is a really hard pose for your shoulders, okay? It pretty much is dictated by your shoulder flexion. The more flexy the shoulder, the easier it is. If your shoulder is a wee bit tighter, full wheel can feel terrible. It's not because you're weak. It's not because of anything else other than the fact that it's very shoulder flexion focused. Okay, so you probably already know at this stage, if you push into full wheel easily, maybe your shoulders are very flexible. There's also a bit of strength, triceps. Wow, work really hard to straighten your arms to push up there. Okay. explore it if you want to. You've also had quite a long day of back bend, so maybe not now. But just that we've touched on that, and we will touch on it again at a later stage. Okay, just bridge for now is perfect. Lie on your back, feet hip distance apart. Arms down to your sides. You can just have your feet underneath your knees. You don't have to yank your heels towards your bum. Doesn't help in any way. Okay, and then when you're ready, inhale and press your hips up towards the ceiling. Okay, lift your hips. Now check in with your neck. Keep your gaze straight to the ceiling. Chin nice and level. Okay, natural curve in the neck. You can stay like this, or if you like, interlace your fingers. So I like to roll off to the right shoulder, tuck the left shoulder underneath. Then roll off to the left shoulder, tuck the right shoulder underneath. That's all. Resist the urge to yank your hands down towards your feet. Rather, push your upper arms into the floor to lift your chest. And now check in with your neck again. Gaze straight up to the ceiling, natural curve in your neck. Can you see how we jam our chins to our chests? Not necessary. This is enough. Stay here if you want. If you're happy to push into a full wheel and would like to explore that, you place your fingers and you push up. Hey, Ari, awesome, with ease, amazing. And then if you're done, you're back screaming, come down and relax. Nice, Alice. So those that pop up, we've normally explored this before. Nice, Ron. Nice, Matt. Excellent. And you kind of know how it feels. So Matt, if your elbows don't straighten, it's often the shoulder thing, but you have so much strength that you're able to push into that position, which is really awesome. Very nice. Wherever you are is perfect. And Elaine, not with your shoulders today. No. Okay, windscreen wiper knees. Do whatever feels good. Full wheel's not happening today. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Nice pose, Ari. So Ari's in full wheel. He's on his toes, which really, really lifts the pose for those that can see. If you go on your toes in full wheel, it takes a lot of that pressure off the lower back. So it feels really awesome. I highly recommend it. Okay. For those that have tighter shoulders, sometimes popping lightly being the keyword, onto your head and then pushing to straighten the arms more is also an awesome assist. And I just want to say, Ruan's also got an awesome pose here. And can you see his shoulders aren't over his wrist? That's totally fine. He's going to where his shoulders go. But he's got a beautiful back bend. Well done. It depends on your shoulders, the shape of your bow. So those with crazy flexy shoulders, I'm assuming our gymnastics girl. Amy, do you want to go for it? No? Want to do a full wheel? No? Just to compare different shapes. When the shoulders are more flexy, she might be, and you can see she's even walked her hands in closer, she's in a more of a compact rainbow, all right? Where Ruan was a little bit more of a spread out rainbow. Doesn't matter, everything is perfect. You can see Amy's shoulders are almost over her wrists. Very flexy shoulders, and that often changes the experience of the pose. Thanks, Amy. Just relax your head there and don't look back towards your feet. Thanks, guys. So different shapes in our full wheel and very much dictated by your shoulder flexion. And I just want to say one more thing on full wheel. You don't have to worry about it today, but it's okay for your knees to go out to the sides. You often heard in a lot of classes, keep your knees pointing forwards. Remember, if we allow the hips to open, like in standing splits, like in dancer's pose, it often creates more space. And if you need that more space, that's also fine. It's the same with the elbows. If your elbows go out to the sides, you'll probably heard this, especially if you've done a lot of Ashtanga yoga, never let your elbows go out, right? They must always hug in. If your elbows go out, remember when we spoke about high mountain with arms closer together, more restrictive. And if your arms are wider, you have more space. It's the same in full wheel. So if your elbows are wider as you push into full wheel, it's fine. You might just need that little bit of extra space. And we don't need to be strict about those things. Okay. but we'll talk about it more later on. But now you have covered all the back bends that are in your assessment. Of course, we would also do mermaid, okay, which you've done already today. So we'll chat about that when we do big back bends. Okay, guys, let's give you a little break because that's been quite an intense session, okay? Have some water, just walk it out, release your backs. When we come back, we're going to do some seated poses. So we'll be more gentle. We'll do some seated forward bends and some seated hip openers. Take 15 minutes. Eat whatever you want, drink whatever you need to. I'll see you back at 11:45. 11:45. See you then. So on page 72, we are starting with our seated forward bends. So last night, we were chatting around the standing forward bends, okay? And what did we learn about forward bends in general in relation to hips and the spine and folding forwards? Anyone want to jump in? Belinda.
We need to move from our hips. So we need to start from the hips and then move forward or move into the pose.
Absolutely. We need to get the movement coming from the hips. And if we don't, Belinda, then where does the movement tend to come from?
From our shoulders and back, and then we just roll or arch it or round it more.
Exactly. So what can we do to modify a pose to help fold from the hips more? Go for it, Belinda.
So wouldn't it also help if we bend our legs?
Exactly. Bending the knees helps enormously to take it out of the hamstrings, because the reason why someone is struggling in a forward fold is due to restricted hamstrings. Yeah. So Belinda's totally right. By bending the knees a little bit, takes that tension out of the hamstrings, which allows them to move more from the hips. Okay, and because they're moving more from the hips, they're actually then able to access their hamstrings properly. Okay, so what we don't want in forward bends is like a really hunchback, rounded back, okay, where you're not folding from the hips. We want to be able to fold from the hips and come forwards, but in a forward bend, our back is a bit rounded. So a little bit of rounding is totally cool. Excessive rounding with the bum tucked. So basically, we're going to look at the hips a lot. We don't want the bum to be tucked underneath you. Similar to downward dog, you want to stick your bum out. You want to stick your bum up to the ceiling in downward dog. It's the same in our seated forward bends and standing forward bends. This little puppy over here is so cute in the camera. We want to tilt forwards from the hips and send your sit bones back. Okay, so we're going to be looking at a lot around the pelvis in forward bends. Okay. Alrighty, so we're on page 72 for our forward bends. Belinda, go for it.
I just have a quick question. I've put a cue in forward bends before, especially seated, that your sit bones need to stay on the ground. But it sometimes feels a little as if they start to lift the further. Is that just because the flexibility isn't really there, or is it necessary for them to stay on the ground for the?
Good question. Good question. So your sit bones are going to be on the floor the whole time. So I think we can clarify that instruction a little bit more. And where we want the weight more like to be either on the front of the sit bones or back on the sit bones. So you're all pretty much sitting on something at the moment. Sit forwards on your bum bones, so stick your butt out, okay? And then sit back on your sit bones and round your back. So can you feel how you can either be sitting forwards, so that's going to feel almost lighter, and then when you sit back, you can really feel your bum bones more. So what we're looking for in forward bends is to sit forwards on your sit bones with your bum sticking out behind you. So So that's also the way I would just clarify that instruction is you want to feel your weight more forwards on your sitting bones rather than with your bum tucked underneath you. Okay. So now as you're sitting, sit with your legs out in front of you. Okay. And then sit back on your sit bones, tuck your bum. Okay, sit back on your sit bones, your back is round, and then try and reach forwards with your bum tucked and the weight back on your sit bone. Can you see how you're not stretching your hamstrings here? You're just going to feel it in your back stretching. So that is what we don't want in a forward bend, okay? What we want, so now bend your knees to make it super accessible. With your knees bent, sit forwards on your sit bones, okay? And then fold forwards. Can you feel how you can fold more from your hips now? And then even with your knees bent, you might actually feel a decent hamstring stretch because we folded more from the hips. Okay, so that's what we're looking for in all forward bends. And even though when you come all the way down, your back's going to round a little bit, it's totally fine that the movement is coming from folding from the hips, hip flexion. So that's going to be our main focus when it comes to our seated forward bends. Okay, so the first pose there is just sitting upright in Dandasana, which is basically a seated version of mountain pose. Dandasana means staff pose. So you're just sitting upright. It's basically just a pose to bring you back to being straight in between forward folds. So from that, I'm actually going to take it onto the next page following that, 74, which will be Paschimottanasana. Because I'm going to do those two together if you want to follow in the manual. Okay. So we've got lots of options because what do you think is easier? To forward fold in sitting, like you are now, or to forward fold when you're standing, which is more accessible?
Standing.
Standing. Yeah. And why does it feel more accessible when we're standing?
You have more weight pushing you down, I guess. Yeah.
Gravity. Yeah, absolutely. You're coming into gravity and your pelvis isn't fixed. So on the floor, you don't have much wiggle room to move your hips forwards or back. You've got the floor stopping you, which makes it harder. When you're standing, it makes it a lot easier to forward fold. So seated forward folds can actually be really tough for our beginners. So that's why I'm going to show you lots of modifications around them as well. But before we go, Marley, you have your hand up and let's check in with you before we go for it.
I just want to ask the question about what's the deal with taking your butt cheeks and moving them? Like, is that a thing? Should you do it? Does it help? I don't know. Is it possible or is it just...
Yeah, so it's a very common thing when you're sitting on your bum to move your bum flesh back. And you know what, in a way, if it makes you more aware to sit more on the front of your sit bones and actually feel your bum bones on the floor, then cool. I think it's totally fine. It's totally harmless. I used to do it a lot, and to the point where I actually overdid it. And I actually found like I was just like actually opening up too much. But I think it's quite harmless, Marley, just to kind of feel your sit bones and feel sitting forwards on your sit bones. It's quite harmless.
Okay.
But the main thing, it needs to come from the joints. I mean, moving your bum is not going to change a huge amount of stuff. But if it helps you to sit more forwards and not tuck your bum underneath you, then that's relevant. And if it helps to almost like having a tactile adjustment, like we had our hands on our ribs earlier, feeling length. If you want to feel what was going on in your sit bones, then I think that's great to help people explore what's going on. It's all good. No. Okie dokie. So I'm going to go from Dandasana into Paschimottanasana. We'll have a look at different options for the hips. So you've got options to use props if you would like, right? So if someone was really tight, this is how I would make the pose very one option we said to modify to help tilt from the hips is to bend the knees, right? Then you can fold forwards. But we don't also sometimes constantly bend the knees, right? It's harmless, and if you don't have props, it works like a bomb. What you could also do is add a support under the hips. And what the bolster has done now is it's actually tipped me forwards to sit more on the front of my sit bones. So that I'm tipping forwards rather than slouching back. And you'll feel it actually makes a really huge difference. So if you have a pillow or something around you, you can give this a go, or sit on a yoga block, also can be really helpful. A little bit of hip support makes all seated positions easier, okay? Whether you're sitting with your legs crossed, or in a twist, or in a forward fold. If someone is struggling and they can't sit upright, seated on something to lift them helps them to tilt more from the hips, okay? So as a teacher, this is your go-to support to help people to sit upright, okay? So you could do your seated position, Dandasana, sitting upright with legs out in front of you and hands towards either your hips or slightly back and lifting the chest. And we basically just return back to this pose between doing different leg positions, all right? From here, we're gonna forward fold. So I like to reach the arms up just because it gives me that feeling of length. And because the arms are up, I can think about doing the forward fold from the hips and not being focused on reaching forwards, which tends to encourage this kind of rounding, but to keep the sense of length in the spine as we fold forwards from the hips. And then I can bring either hands to shins, ankles, feet, or outer edges of feet. But if someone couldn't hold their feet, and if you had props and wanted to make use of them, an upright forward bend is actually really nice, okay? So they're gonna be sitting a lot higher. Their back is gonna be pretty straight. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. A little bit of rounding is also fine. But having that strap to almost draw against to help that sense of folding from the hips actually creates a beautiful forward fold. So this is a lovely way to modify all forward folds with a strap to help people to fold from the hips. Okay, so those would be your modified versions. If you are going further and you're folding all the way flat, feet are generally together, but they also can be apart. We're folding forwards, and once you come down, the back is going to start to round, okay? You can see it's not rounding excessively. I'm not in like a big hunchback position, but because I'm folding forwards, I'm doing spinal flexion, and the back will round a bit, okay? But most of the movement is happening from the hips. Then from here, you can hold either shins, ankles, or outer edges of the feet feel quite nice, so that you can always bend and drop your elbows down in that forward fold for those that go all the way down. Okay, to come up, almost like when we do it standing, little halfway lift, and then come back up to seated and release. Are nice ways to transition in and out of the pose, if you like. Okay, so give it a go. If you have something to sit on, go for it, because it does feel nice. Just to explore that from a teacher's perspective and feel how it makes the pose more accessible. Okay, and it actually feels really nice just in general. Okay, then inhale your arms up and exhale to forward fold. Feel if you're on a cushion how it's helping you to tip more from your pelvis, right? Hands can be on your shins or your ankles or your big toes. Cool. And then bend your knees and also feel if this wasn't accessible, you could bend the knees a bit and feel how that helps to lengthen the spine a bit. Yeah. So those would be your modifications. So Ari, same as your down dog, bend the knees just a bit and push your chest forward. Start off with knees bent. Yes. Just because I'm getting a little bit too much rounding. Okay, now that's looking better. Now you can hold your feet. Flex your toes, push your chest forwards, think of straight, yes, just like that, Ari. You're actually gonna get a stronger stretch, perfect. And just for now, slight bend in the knees is working really nice. Oh, there we are. Now you straighten your legs, but you kept that awareness. Cool. And then from here, if you're folding deeper, stay where you are. This is enough. Or you can fold head towards the shins. I always like the cue, take your nose towards your toes. So don't think of folding your head towards your knees. Think of moving forwards, nose to toes. Lengthen your spine forwards in the forward bend. Yes, Miriam, nice. Good, and then neck in line with spine. So drop the chin slightly, yes. And then to come out of the pose, inhale, a little halfway lift. Reach arms up and come back up. Release arms down to the sides. Okay, how did that feel? Come and have a chat. So Alice has taken the strap there. If you have a strap, do what Alice has done there. She's taken her strap and she's using the strap to sit up nice and straight in that forward fold. And if you have props and teaching beginners, this is an awesome way to teach these poses. I think it looks really beautiful. I love a good upright forward bend like that. And Alice, how effective is it? You're feeling the stretch like big time. It's not easier in any way. It's just a different way of doing it. So that looks awesome. Thanks, Alice. Nice pose. All right, Michaela, your hand is up.
I actually just thought in Iyengar, they make you straight, and you can't go far. Like, I think I could go that much when you have to do it that way.
Exactly. I love a good Iyengar's forward bend like that.
I just wanted to give a comment. So I think it was last night when we were just doing the normal standing forward fold and you spoke about bending the legs. It actually stretches more for me. It almost moves the stretch from like the center of my hamstrings almost like to the outer edges too. So yeah, I've decided I'm actually gonna like alternate because I feel like it's almost a deeper stretch and you wouldn't think so.
Absolutely.
But it's quite intense, yeah.
Totally. So by bending the knees, you're actually getting more hip flexion. So you're getting more from folding forwards from your hips and you're actually getting deeper into it in the joints. You're getting more hip flexion and changing that stretch. So awesome observation, Michaela. Very cool. Yeah, and we think by bending the knees, you're making it easy. You're not actually. You've just shifted it so that you're accessing your hamstrings in a better way. So very cool observation. Thanks for that. And then Elaine?
Thanks. Is it a anatomy thing? I was just wondering because it feels like my head is never going to reach my shins. Maybe my legs are too long, but my head is, it's going to reach my knees if I'm lucky.
So yes, it can be proportions, 100%. If you have a shorter torso and longer legs, when you fall forward, it's going to look different to someone with short legs and a long torso. Absolutely. Also, the kind of straighter your back, the more you're going to be more towards the feet. So it also depends how much your back is maybe rounding less or more. So it's totally fine, but proportions play a huge role. So I always bring it back to those with long arms because my arms aren't very long, so I'm a bit jealous. But if you have long arms, you barely forward fold and you can touch your feet. So some people hold their feet so much easier just because their arms are longer, and it changes everything. Makes it easier to reach back and hold your foot behind you simply because your arms are longer, as opposed to shorter arms. So proportions play a huge role. So it could be that, Elaine, absolutely. But even if your head isn't going to touch your shins, and they might not, it's still that thought of moving forwards to the toes rather than rounding down to the knees. So it's more like a visual sense of length in the pose. Clara?
I think it helps to, because I have a very short upper body as well, I think it really helps to kind of suck in the tummy to then get over. That was like a game changer for me.
Awesome. Fabulous. And a lot of people like that sense of lifting up through the tummy and then almost like folding over your legs and lifting up through the belly. And if that is one of those like subtle cues that really works well for you, then fantastic. That's awesome. Lovely. I like, for me, my kind of subtle cue in this is I'm lengthening and then I'm trying to bring my tummy towards my thighs. So I'm kind of closing that gap first. And then I think of a little bit more lengthening, trying to bring this idea of bringing my ribs towards my knees. So I'm lengthening, and then my nose towards my toes. It doesn't look like that, but that is the feeling I'll get. And then pirouette in forward folds, your back won't be perfectly straight, yeah? It will round a little bit, just so we clarify on that. Cool. A lot of people think that you must only do it with a straight back. And yes, while you're quite upright, your back can be straight, but the lower you go, the more your back will round, and that is all right. Okay. All right, so that was your Paschimottanasana in Dandasana. On the next page, you will find our one-legged forward fold, Janu Sirshasana, head of the knee pose. Not the easiest translation, this one, because when you do it in the advanced version, it actually refers to rolling onto that back knee, and it can be actually quite a crazy pose. But we will do it in an accessible way to start off with. So we often call it one-legged forward fold as well, just for sake of ease. Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to think of taking this foot in like a tree pose. Okay. Basically like you're doing tree. So do you want to come together? Let's do it all together. So come to seated with your legs out in front of you. Okay, dokie. And remember, if the cushion felt really helpful, go with your cushion again. It can feel really nice. Actually, I'm going to take it off this. Okay. And then both legs out in front, feet together. Okay. And then bend your right foot up like tree pose. So your sole of your right foot is touching your left inner thigh. Some of you may have done the more advanced version where you take that leg behind you. Let's do the most accessible version, where left leg is in line with the hip and right foot is in tree. Okay, we're going to inhale, reach both arms up, feel the lengthening through the spine. Okay, and remember we want to sit forwards on your sit bones. So begin to fold forwards from the hips. If a slight bend in your front knee helps you to do that, then do so. And then you're going to fold straight. Okay, so remember we were talking about it last night with Clara and with Ruan about rotating the chest over the thigh. For this version, just think of going straight forwards. So my shoulders are coming straight down with my mat. Okay, and this is the most accessible way to start this pose. Okay, so you're just forward folding. Again, hands can be on the shin, the ankle or foot. And we can always do the strap version as well, where you can be more upright with the strap and it also feels like a really, really nice stretch. So try all of those versions. Okay. And then when you're ready to come back, lift your chest, reach arms up, and release both legs straight. So you can see how we kind of come feet together like a seated mountain pose, just to make sure everything is straight. And then we'll do that on the other side, bending the left foot up like tree pose. Hips are pointing forwards. Right leg is in line with the hip. We inhale, both arms up. And then we forward fold just straight forwards. Shoulders in line with hips, straight down and fold. Okay, right foot is flexed. Draw the right kneecap up so your leg is strong and straight. Have a sense of length in the spine in the forward fold, so we're not encouraging excessive rounding. Good. And then when you're ready, you can lift your chest and come upright. If you explored it with the strap on the first side, you can also use the strap in a more upright version, which is a fantastic way to explore these poses. And just because I touched on it, I'll explain what I mean. The advanced version is when your right knee actually goes behind you, okay? So it's more of an angle. It's not like tree pose. My right knee is gone like behind me. And then, like Ruan and Clara, I know you'll ask this question, then you do the rotation to line your spine up with your front leg. And that is kind of the next phase. If you wanted to do that in a more maybe advanced class or for a particular reason, that is why it's called Janu Sushasana, head of the knee, because sometimes you actually roll onto that right knee. And then that's just a kind of more extreme version of the forward fold and gets much more stretch into the back, but is less accessible for most people, let's just say most people in general, 90% of people. So you've got different ways of doing the pose. Okay. How does that feel? Any questions? Nice forward. This is the best one. It's lovely because with both legs straight, it can be quite restrictive. There's less space, okay? Where this one, because you've got one leg bent and forward folding, there's much more space and it makes it much easier to forward fold. So if you want to teach forward folds to your beginners, I recommend this is one of the best ones to teach. Belinda.
I just want to know, I reach my feet very easily. I think I have nice long arms.
You look lovely and long.
My back is very rounded.
Wow. So let's have a look, Belinda. It's easiest for me to see to guide you. So Belinda's got beautiful long legs and long arms. So she's going to inhale. Already here I can see, Belinda, your bum is slightly tucked underneath you. So bend your knees a little bit just to start. Stick your butt out. Can you see by her pelvis now? We're looking for that straight line, for almost her pelvis to move in and up. Yes. Can you feel that, Belinda? Now you're more on the fronts of your sit bones. Now begin to fold forwards like this. Stick your bum out. Yes, and now your back is actually beautiful. Look how long those arms are. That's amazing. That's so cool. And then that is going to help. First, you just get your back in the right position. Then you can straighten your legs. And your back is a bit rounded, but that's fine. You're actually fine. It's not excessively rounded. But I would start with a little bit of a bend in your knees to begin the forward fold. Just because you do have a tendency to have your bum tucked a little bit. Could you feel the difference? That was awesome. Could you guys see the difference when Belinda bent her knees, how that back of her pelvis kind of moved in and up and was straighter, as opposed to rounding back? That's what we're looking for. Okay, thanks, Belinda.
Thanks so much.
But she's not excessively rounding. That is all good. But to start a little bit more sitting forwards is better. Like Ruan is also doing it that way. And I recommend it for a lot of people. Yes, Ruan, just to get the movement coming from the hips more. And then once you're there, then you can slowly slide your heels away from you a bit. And then you'll feel a very effective stretch. That's perfect. Perfect forward fold. Okay. Anyone else want me to check in with their poses? Clara, that looks great. Where Clara, stay there, Clara, she has a very straight back in her forward fold because her hamstrings are very flexible. So can you see her back is pretty much straight. So it kind of just depends on your body as well. And then if Clara folds her head towards her shins, then she's going to get a little bit more rounding in the back and release head down. Where she's doing it pretty straight. Wherever you go, it doesn't really matter. You're all feeling the stretch in the same place. You're getting the exact same benefits of the pose. Doesn't matter how far or low you go. Okay. And then Miriam is our pancake of the group because she folds and squishes in half in all her poses. When she comes down and holds onto her feet and releases her head to the shins, which is very comfortable to do. Can you see how her tummy is flat against her thighs? Her ribs are on her knees and her head is on her shins. And she's like chill there. It looks like she could sleep there. And that is just hamstring flexibility. Thanks, Miriam. So bodies are going to look different in different poses, and that's cool. Michaela.
I've seen how can I say, even more advanced bind, which maybe people like Miriam and Clara could try, which is where you go further than the foot and you hold onto the wrist, and it pulls you your head even more towards your toes.
Absolutely. So Miriam, we'll make you do that if you don't mind. So Miriam's going to forward fold. And then can you see her hands can go past her feet very easily. So Miriam could flex her feet. It's quite hard to do it in Paschimottanasana because there's 2 feet there. But Miriam, come back up again. Let's do it in the pose that we're doing now. Bend the right leg up like tree pose and then forward fold again. It's easier to do it on the 1 foot. And then coming down. Okay, now Miriam, you're going to hold your left wrist with your right hand. So your hand is going to go past, yes, flex your foot so your toes up. Exactly.
There we go.
And then Miriam has taken a bind, and it, as Michaela says exactly, it gives you the sense of moving more forwards. And then she could think of bending her elbows, which would draw her more forwards. And it just gives you a little bit of extra in that pose. Thanks, Miriam. All right, cool. So that is a lovely forward bend. And I'm going to do one more with you guys so we cover all the ones that are in your assessment, okay? We can always go back and chat about the other ones, but just while I have your brains. If you flip forwards, you will find the wide-legged forward fold. Upabishta Konasana, wide-legged forward fold. Okie dokie. So similar to our standing wide-legged forward fold, this is the seated version. But because we're seated, you're on page 79, because we're seated, and sometimes it's harder to fold forwards from the hips. It's not quite as accessible as the standing version. Okay, so it can be a little bit tricky. Let's do it together. So come to sitting on your mat, okay? And we're gonna open the legs wide out to the sides, okay? So your legs don't need to be like in the side splits, right? They can also just be out at about 45-degree angles on either side, okay? Only as far as what feels good for you. Now the pelvis. So these inner thigh muscles are stretching now, okay? And this can feel very uncomfortable. So it's a tricky pose. The biggest way we can make it accessible is not too wide on the legs. Take your hands behind your back and be on your fingertips. Especially for the guys, sometimes, not always, I'm just stereotyping now. This can be a little bit harder to access. Be on your fingertips and then push with your hands to help you sit more forwards on your sit bones. And I recommend keeping your hands here to maintain that tilt forwards of your hips. If you feel you take your hands away and then your bum tucks underneath you, then better to work like pulling a pillow underneath your hips. Works very well, sitting on a bolster, and then use your hands to tilt you forwards. And then stay like this, it feels really nice, okay? So stay there, that's working for you. Next option is to bring hands forwards. So you've taken that a little bit further, but make sure your bum hasn't tucked underneath you, but that you're still sitting forwards on your sitting bones. Okay, now you can see some of you are sitting in almost side splits. You can walk yourself all the way down if you like and release your head, or for some, the chest onto the floor. It looks like Nicole is going to head there. Okay, you've also got options to bind your big toes, which can feel quite nice, and then you bend your elbows out to the sides to forward fold. So there's loads of different options here. You could always walk hands to the one side and then the other side. You could do lateral stretches. Depending on what you're teaching in your class, you can customize this pose. Most accessible is upright on your fingertips and using your hands to sit you forwards. So for your beginners, or for just a lot of us, this will feel most comfortable. Okay. Coming out of the pose, sometimes nice to just hold the back of the knees and assist the legs back together. Okay, So that is your wide-legged forward fold. We'll be doing all of these in your assessment. Any questions? Michaela, your hand is up. Was that from earlier? I think it was from earlier. Okay. Any questions to do with your wide-legged forward fold? How did that feel? So we're stretching inner thighs in this pose. What could this be a good prep pose for? What other poses do we stretch our inner thighs? I'm using a lot of hands, but I'm not quite sure.
Skandasana.
Yes, Skandasana. Nicole?
Butterfly.
Butterfly. I think butterfly would be easier. So butterfly would be a good prep for this pose, right? Yeah. Where Matt is heading, he's doing the wide-legged forward fold standing. That might be easier than the seated version. So the standing one would prep for this one, right? So it's also tricky to work out how to progressively build the stretch. So I would go butterfly first, then the standing wide-legged forward fold like Matt did, then this one, and we could use that as a prep for something like Skandasana. Probably quite similar though, Skandasana. Can we think of anything harder when our legs are... Did you say full moon? Half moon?
Yeah.
Half moon pose, Ardha Chandrasana, yes. So that would be a good prep pose to help stretch those inner thighs. And anything where you're taking your leg out to the side. So think about standing hand to foot pose, bird of paradise, those kind of poses where you have to have a really big stretch into your inner thighs. You'll look at some arm balances soon as well. Firefly pose, Tittibhasana, when you've got your legs over your shoulders. You're balancing on your hands. You know, play with all those poses later on, don't you worry. All of those kind of shapes where you need your legs out to the side, stretching inner thighs, this would be a good prep for. Okay. You're going to chat about breaking down poses and a little bit more with sequencing with Taryn this weekend. So we're going to slowly start shifting all this information you've learned about your poses now into breaking down a pose, first of all, and then sequencing for a pose. So we're slowly just planting those seeds and getting ideas here. Okay. Those are all the four
Laura?
things. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, where do you sit with, you know, externally rotating the legs and keeping the feet towards the ceiling? Because I know, like in yin, they tell you to just let go and let your feet just fall to the ground. Like, where do you? Because I always feel that I'm trying to like externally rotate, but is it fine to just like kind of relax it, not let them drop completely? Or
so it's very much a dancer's thing to want to externally rotate, because it's like doing a la seconde, right? We want to externally rotate that leg. In yoga, we are thinking more of the legs being in abduction. So the legs are just opening. They don't necessarily need to externally rotate as well. Okay. They can, I mean, it's totally fine, but in these poses, pretty much parallel. So you've just opened your legs into abduction is our norm, okay? And then in yin, I mean, they encourage even a little bit of internal rotation there. And for some people, that feels like it creates more space. So all of those options are okay.
okay.
But as a general, like neutral, just feet up to the ceiling is what we're doing in Upavishta Konasana, hip abduction, and not needing the external rotation.
Okay, thank you.
Unless you're doing it for a particular reason, then you could instruct it that way. But it's very much a dancer thing. I know, very guilty of that too. I know. Okie dokie. Any questions on those forward folds? All good. Okay, so we're going to move into some seated hip openers now. So on the next page, you will find section 5, and it starts with an easy cross-legged seated position. Okay, So again, when we're seated, you can always sit on a prop. You can sit on a bolster, you can sit on a cushion. If students can't sit with their back upright, then we take support. So the same rules apply in our seated hip openers. Okay, so come to sit with your legs crossed. In Sukhasana, Sukhasana means easy pose. Okay. So in Sukhasana, what we're looking for here is just to be most of all comfortable. We're normally just doing this pose where we can do, shoulder stretches, spine warm-ups, anything that kind of feels good, okay? It's easy pose for a reason, so you just want to find an easy cross-legged position, okay? But what people tend to do in this pose, I'm going to come off my mat so it's clearer to see. What people tend to do is tuck the feet in really close, and then you land up with one knee higher than the other knee, okay? So what you want to feel is shuffle your feet a little bit further forwards, okay? And then you'll notice how the knees can drop down and sit more evenly on either side, okay? And then feet can just be relaxed. Sometimes if you've been here for a long time, your ankles get a bit sore, so that's a common issue. But you can do a seated cat-cow here. You can do lateral stretches. You can bring in whatever themes you want, whatever you're doing in your class. All right, shoulder stretches, anything you like in this position. It's also quite nice to walk your hands forwards into a little forward fold, taking that stretch deeper into the hips. And one of my favorites is then taking it over to the one side and folding over the knee. Okay, so a lovely pose to do warm-ups or cool-downs in, or themed shoulder or spine stretches. Okay, and then you can come back up. You have other options here in this pose too, and one option is Siddhasana. Okay, so this is where you actually line one heel up with the center of your pelvis, okay? And then you do the same with the other foot. So your knees are much wider apart, and it's actually really comfortable for some. Depends on your knees and your hips. Your heels are in the center line of your body. And what's quite nice is because your toes are turned up more, the soles of feet are facing up. For me, it feels more comfortable in the ankles as well. So this is also a lovely position, especially if you want to do breath work or meditation and you want to sit for quite a long time. Sitting can be really tiring. Let's not underestimate the back muscles you need to sit here for 5-10 minutes, however long you're going to be. And also how it can be uncomfortable for some in their hips. Okay, and then there's other versions called Svastikasana, which is a very ideal way of doing it, where you sit with your feet flexed underneath your knees. So we cross the legs in the middle of the shins, okay? The feet are flexed, and you're trying to bring your heels underneath your knees. So it's kind of just a strict way of sitting with your legs crossed. So the legs cross at mid-shin. You bring your shins forwards, so you'll see your legs cross over quite neatly there. Feet are flexed, and heels or feet land up underneath the knees. So there's different ways you can kind of sit with your legs crossed. Okay, is there anything else I wanted to say? A lot of people will sit with their back rounded like this. So if you see this in a class, try it. Sit with your legs crossed and then sit back on your sit bones. Feel how tiring it is. Your abdominal muscles are having to work. Your back is going to get tight, and your hip flexors and your quads are really working hard to hold you in this position. So then by sitting on a pillow or a bolster or a block will help your students to be more upright in a seat. Okay, and that's important. We don't want to leave them like this because you can feel it gets really tiring. Okay, so any questions around sitting with your legs crossed in Sukhasana and those versions there? All good? Matt.
Yeah, Laura, it's more of a general question, but the teachers in this is that we tend to favor one side. So I'll always favor my right. And also when we were doing the sequence earlier with linking our hands behind our backs, I favor one hand. And what impact that might have on the poses, basically, or whether we should try to
Awesome question, Matt. I think it's very important to change. So if you're sitting always with the right leg in front, and in your classes say, okay, now swap legs and sit the other way. So you can actually bring it in to do both sides. I think it's really awesome. And exactly the same with interlacing fingers. I always say it's like a little bit of brain yoga, because now, because you're not used to having to change, have your other index finger on top and change the interlace of your hands. I think it's really awesome to bring that in, because it's also working your brain differently, and we get so stuck always sitting with the one leg in front. So thanks for mentioning that. Good to alternate. Especially if you're bringing in a forward fold there and extra stretches, then change it up and then repeat it all with the left leg in front or the other leg in front. We all get very stuck in our habits. You're very right. Okie dokie. Everyone feeling all right with that? Okay. You are going to explore lotus and bigger hip openers at a later stage. Okay. So we'll talk about lotus and all of those kind of poses a little later on. Okay. So if you can just flip forwards, we're going to come to Gomukhasana, cow face pose. Okay, so skip over lotus and Agni Stambhasana. You will find Gomukhasana on page 84. All right, interesting name, this one. So you can see it's kind of like seated eagle pose, where you have one thigh over the other thigh in your eagle. Yeah, we're kind of doing it in a similar way now in a seated position. So these are the two ways where we bring the legs across the midline of the body in adduction. Abduction going wide, adduction coming together. Okay, if we're looking at it from hips, we don't do it very often in yoga. Both the hips are still in external rotation. So we're still working these external rotators, good for prepping for bigger poses where we need external rotation in the hips. Okay. So for Gomukhasana, what we want to remember, the same as eagle pose, is opposite arms to legs. So you can see in the picture, whatever leg is in front, so if the right leg is on top, then the left elbow is going to be the one on top. Okay, so you need to try and remember to alternate. Okay, opposite arms to legs. There's different ways of getting into this pose because it can be a little bit tricky getting in and out of. And watch your knees and things like that. If you have any stickiness, go slowly. All right. So I quite like the kneeling way of getting into this pose, which is quite cool. You can come from hands and knees, cross one thigh behind the other thigh, okay? Shuffle your feet off to the sides, and then you can slowly roll back to sitting between your heels. So that's also quite a cool way to enter the pose. If you're already seated, of course you can do it in a seated way, cross one thigh over, sit off onto the other hip, onto the bum cheek, bend the bottom leg in, and then come to sitting with both hips on the floor. All right, so you can join me here if you like. Come from a kneeling position or from seated, or try both different entries. I quite like the kneeling way these days, just to change it up and bring it into a sequence is quite fun. Okay, once you've got your legs in Gomukhasana, so be aware this can feel a little bit uncomfortable, okay? Different for different shapes of hips. What you want to feel in this pose is both sit bones, both bum cheeks on the floor, okay? So ground down through both hips. If it feels like you can't do this or it's feeling really inaccessible, sit on a cushion or a block, and that height makes it feel a million times better. So that's always available. And it's tricky. A lot of you taking a support, fantastic. Then the closer your heels are towards your hips, okay, the less external rotation you're doing in your hips. So that might feel more comfortable, but it might be harder on the knees. If you shuffle your feet more forwards towards the front of your mat, you're externally rotating in the hips more, and that is going to deepen the stretch into your hips. So feel the difference, okay? Be upright and make sure both sit bones are on the floor. And then your hips might be screaming at you, which is very normal, and you're not the only one, okay? For Gomukhasana, so if you've got your right leg on top, we take the left arm up and bend the elbow, and you can do just a little tricep stretch here, especially for those working with niggly shoulders. This is the best version for shoulders that are uncomfortable. If this pose is just really not working for you in the legs, okay, mat, you can keep your bottom leg straight and just cross one leg over, and you can kind of start with it there. Okay, I know. It's really tough, okay? And then you still getting the benefit of the external rotation on the hip, and we'll just focus on the arm work from here, okay? And then you can take the bind like we did in this morning's class. This is not great for sore shoulders, the bottom arm. So if you're taking the bind, you turn your thumb down towards the floor. So it's internal rotation of the shoulder. That's why shoulders don't particularly love it. Then you bend your elbow and take your hand behind your back. And then you don't have to force your fingers to touch behind you. You can just reach them towards one another. And another reason why I say won't grab your strap, because you end up forcing it. You end up yanking with your strap and forcing your shoulders where they might not want to go. So just allow your shoulders to be where they're happy, or hold in this version of the tricep stretch. Okay, if your legs are screaming, come out of the pose at any point. There's a fun transition, which you've probably maybe done in a class. Release your arms. If your right foot is on top, you turn towards your right foot. So I'm turning to the left. I'm going to glue my feet where they are, and without moving my toes, I'm going to do a little spin around to face the back, keep spinning around to face all the way around, so I cross my legs the other way, and then you can come down to sitting and your other leg lands on top, just as a fun little transition. If you didn't get that your toes stay where you are, you lift your butt, you spin to face the back, and then you spin all the way around, and then you will do it on the other side, and just give that a go on the other side. Yes, that looks good, Matt. Perfect. And then take your Gomukhasana arms, either just a tricep stretch or the bind. Perfect. So with the arms, you want that top elbow drawing towards your ear, okay? Your bottom shoulder, this is a big one. You don't want that bottom shoulder rolling forwards like this. The idea is to feel the shoulder blade moving back towards the spine. So you retract your shoulder back in, which is quite uncomfortable. Yes, that's it. Opposite arms to legs, hips are grounded if that feels okay for you. Top elbows drawing towards your ear or towards your head, and the bottom shoulder, you're bringing the shoulder blade back and down. Okay, and then release and soften. Okay, quite an awkward pose. You may need to revisit it during the week and feel what options feel good for you. Whether that's staying just in a tricep stretch and maintaining an upright position, or are you able to cross the legs or maybe keep one leg straight out in front of you? Or if that still feels horrible, then just do it with your legs crossed. Okay, it can be very uncomfortable for hips and knees, so something to be aware of as a teacher. Sometimes by sitting higher up on a pillow or a bolster or a block can make it more accessible, but sometimes not either. So Matt, that was not a comfortable position for you. Didn't enjoy that one. So try the bottom leg straight and explore different options and feel what works good for your body, okay? We will look at it again individually when we meet in our smaller groups, and I will also advise you if something like this pose is just feeling awful, I'll see what works best for your body as well, if you haven't found what works best. Clara.
I quite like, instead of having the arm up here, then the opposite arm goes around if you're not in the mood to bind, because then you still get that external rotation.
Yes. So you're saying no, don't touch your hands, but just kind of work the shapes. Oh, she's got her hand around her waist. Oh, that's lovely. I like that. That's a nice idea. Because this shoulder position, your shoulder's actually internally rotating. So you can't actually externally rotate it. All we're trying to do is move the shoulder back. You're trying to bring your thing from your shoulder blade to retract and keep that sense of opening in the shoulder. Yes, Clara, I think that's a lovely modification. I like that. Good idea. Okay. So different ways to play with that pose. I quite enjoy playing with it these days for vinyasa purposes, just for fun. So you can always come into your Gomukasana legs, okay, and do a little stretch and then rock it forwards, and then I quite like a little cross-legged downward dog, and then you can kind of spin open into like a little wild thing and then spin it back. And then from there, you can do the spinny thing and, I don't know, change legs. But something I've kind of enjoyed playing with these days. Doing fancy choreography, I guess, because it's fun to play with. Some of you just hate this pose and never want to see it again. But, you know, you can explore it. Okay. Any questions with Gomukasana cow face pose? You're all still doing okay? All right. So then we'll move on to our butterfly pose, Baddha Konasana. Okay, so a real classic yoga pose. Come to seated, we'll just do it all together. Sitting with the soles of your feet together and knees out to the sides. Okay. The closer you bring your heels towards your sit bones, the more intense the pose, okay? The further you take your heels away from you, it might feel easier. So you just feel in your body where that's working for you, okay? Again, just like wide-legged forward fold, this can be a very hard pose to feel upright in. You can have your hands behind your back, feel it, on your fingertips and lift your chest. Okay, hands behind your back, push into your fingertips, and you can feel, because your hands are behind you, you've got a little bit more support, and then you can just actively feel the thighs pressing down. So for a lot of us, that can feel a nice way to just make space in the pose. Okay. Then, of course, the classic version is to wrap your hands around the baby toe sides of your feet, the outer edges of your feet, and then lift your chest and lengthen up through the spine. If it feels best to keep your hands behind your back, then do so, okay? I like the sensation of drawing the chest through the arms, so you can do a very upright version of the pose. Okay. Yeah, mat, and then, so mat, that looks more comfortable with hands behind your back because it's giving you more support to actually press your thighs more open. So if we compare here, Matt is using his hands to help open up through the hips, okay? And then I wanted to also look here at Belinda, who, I'm adding her to the spotlight, her hips are very different. Her knees are resting on the floor. So it basically doesn't matter, no one cares, but her shape of her hip sockets are different to Matt's shapes of his hip sockets. Belinda's knees are flat on the floor, Matt's knees, he's working to open his hips. Okay, both are completely fine, but we're going to feel very different in these poses. Okay, so Matt, you can stay there if that's working for you. And if you're sitting quite comfortably like Belinda, some of you might want to walk your hands forwards and forward fold. Yeah, and then you can see Belinda, such ease of movement, puts her head on the floor. So for a lot of us, it's not that comfortable. Okay. Basically, you go wherever works for you. In this pose, you can slowly come up whenever you're ready. And when you're in the forward fold, your back will round and your bum will more likely be tucked. Okay, so you can do it also very rounded. And that's why it's a great prep for what pose? Crow. Yes, Clara. It's a great prep for crow because your legs are in that position. And if you're forward folding, like you can see Ari was in there, your back is rounding as well and is making perfect shapes for crow. Okay, you'll see when you do your anatomy different shapes of hip sockets. So like Belinda, you could see her hip socket is just different. Okay, for her it's very easy to open out to the side. For me and for Matt as well, we get to a point where our hip just stops. Okay, and it doesn't open anymore. And that's fine because you literally hit a point where it's literally bone on bone. It's not going to change. That's just where your hips go. Okay, it might get easier over time if your inner thighs are tight, okay, but most of us, we're going to hit a point that is just as far as our joint opens, and there's no amount of forcing it that's going to change because it's bone, okay, and that's cool, and it's a relief sometimes to not force things, just go, okay, cool, that's where my body goes, awesome. Okay, any questions around your seated butterfly pose? Baddha Konasana. Depending on what you're teaching it for, maybe you would do it upright, maybe you would want the rounding, and you can customize it to work for your sequence or for the people that you're teaching. All good? Okay. Alice?
I see in the manual there's a cue as to not to grab your don't grab your feet.
So you don't have to pull your feet up. So what people tend to do is if you're struggling in the pose and you're kind of rounding and struggling to be upright, rather take your hands behind your back and be in the more lifted version, as opposed to like relying on gripping and holding your feet to be there. So a light hold of the feet is totally cool, but don't lift the feet off the floor.
Okay.
And another one I would say as well is don't push your knees down with your elbows as well. Again, you're kind of like forcing the pose. Just kind of be where you are and be comfortable. Or not comfortable, that's but just allow your hips to be where they are. Does that make sense, Alice?
Yeah, I think I've definitely done both of those because I don't I can't go very far, which is fine. But I definitely have done, you know, the
you
elbows.
want to push. Yeah. No, me too as well, because for me, my hips stop at a certain point and I've always wanted them to be flat on the floor, but they just don't go there. So there's that urge to want to force them down, but better rather to not and just be where they are. And a cool version, which actually helps us to do the opposite, is squeeze your knees to your upper arms. So you're actually engaging your inner thighs and then just let them drop down. And you'll feel there's almost like a sense of like, it actually is easier. So you almost trick your body into relaxing into it more. Cool. Thanks, Alice. Clara?
What is the benefits of kind of opening up the feet when you do that? When they say like open it up like a book?
Yeah.
It
So
feels like
it's quite a nice visual thing, opening up the soles of your feet like a book. It sounds very nice. But basically, anatomically, all you're doing is you're getting a little bit more movement from your ankles. So you're increasing range of movement from the ankles. So you're basically just moving your ankle joints, and that's going to give you a sense of opening up your hips more. But basically, you've just moved more from your ankle joints, which has made it. It's not a cheat. I wouldn't say a cheat, but it's made it easier because your ankles, you're getting movement from your feet. As opposed to, Clara, if you push your feet together, big toes together, your knees will probably lift up a little bit because you're not cheating. Where if you allow a little bit of movement to come from your feet, then your knees open more. Which is totally cool. It's totally fine because we actually do it in lotus as well. When you do lotus position, we're also going to play with a little bit of extra give from our ankles to make it easier. So both is fine. And if it feels nice, awesome. And it does sound pretty. but know that it's just your ankles. Okay, we all happy with that? 2 more poses, okay? Because you guys have had a hectic day. I might not even get to the last one. Let's see how we go. Malasana squat. Okay. Whew, so this can be tough for knees, hey? We've done quite a lot of Malasana squats, especially in the arm balance sequence, which we're doing tomorrow morning. In Malasana, your yoga squat, your feet can be hip distance apart with your feet turned out, okay, which offers more space, okay, often more accessible. And you can also do it with your feet together, or some of you, I remember Elaine had to do it with your feet slightly apart, feet together, and then your knees are kind of open in a little diamond. Okay, so let's explore both of those options. Let's come up to a standing position. Step your feet hip distance apart, or maybe even a little bit wider. Okay, turn your toes out into a little V. And then slowly squat down. If squatting down all the way is sore on your knees, don't squat too low or be more in a goddess. Okay, that looks okay. We are right. You can feel, because your feet are wider and you can even shuffle them wider than hip distance, it's easier to bring your heels onto the floor. If your heels pop up, it's also okay because that's going to help you be less restricted by your ankles. Okay. Then bring your shoulders between your knees. If this is a horrible pose and you need to come out of it, please feel free to do so at any point. Okay, and then hands to pray. Nice. Some of you are comfortable, some are less comfortable. It's all good. Slowly come back up to standing. I want to show you just a little modification before we do the next version as well, is because there's a lot going on in your ankles in this pose. Your Achilles tendon, the back of your heels here. If you do it with your heels slightly raised, in any version, in the feet together version or feet wide, I'll do it feet together, if my heels are up, it actually helps a lot and gives you quite a nice support. So you can make use of props here. You could also sit on a block, okay, which also takes a bit of pressure off as well. So you've got options, okay. If you would like to try that, give it a go. Otherwise, with feet together, squat down, okay. And you'll feel it's a little bit harder now. Your heels most likely won't be on the floor. Okay, and that's why taking a support under the heels can feel more comfortable for some. Round forward so that your knees are touching your upper arms. Okay, and depending where you want to go, you could also bring hands onto the floor. There's also nice twists you can do here, opening up one arm. You can even round and hold towards the back of your ankles and your heels. So lots of different shapes you can do. Come out of the pose whenever you need to, explore both options. And then easing on up. Okay, is anyone having any difficulties there around knees? Okay, Matt, you look more comfortable in that version actually. Interesting, hey? And allowing the heels to lift is totally fine. A lot of people always ask me, well, my heels lift, am I allowed to? It's like, yes, of course. It just depends on your ankle flexibility, basically that tendon behind your heel. If your heels are up or down, doesn't matter. Michaela.
I wanted to ask, where is the right area to have your weight? Because I find that, I don't know if it's the right way that I've been taught, is that eventually you're supposed to take your elbows and push your legs back to try and get your body upright. So I find that my weight is, how can I say it, sitting in my bum. Like I have to go, I sit like this in it. Is that fine? Like
It's fine. Both,
I also find I balance more that way.
Both is totally fine. So sometimes I teach it and I want you to really round and come forwards if I'm teaching it for something like crow. If I'm teaching this pose, and that doesn't feel comfortable for you.
No, I love it.
No,
it stretches your back so nicely.
Most people will do it, is actually more forwards. So that's probably more common. And then you could also instruct it to be more upright if you wanted to do that for a particular reason for a sequence. And then, as you say, your weight will be further back and your back will be straighter. So I guess both is totally fine. Most of us are going to be more in the forwards rounded version, but it depends on what you're doing the pose for. You can emphasize one more than the other. Again, you can gently nudge the legs out, but I wouldn't, again, you don't have to force them out to the sides.
Yeah, okay.
There's no real goal to be in one more than the other from my perspective. It just depends, okay, well, why are you doing it? What do you want from this pose?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That kind of answered your question in a very blurry way.
Thank you.
Miriam.
So if my feet are wide apart and I'm in prayer pose, am I allowed to push my thighs apart in this case?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if they don't want to go, don't force it. I'm just saying don't force it. But yes, Miriam, for you to just feel a little bit of encouragement to open the legs wider, totally fine. Totally fine. In either position. I guess it's just like to the point where we sometimes like want to force our bodies into position and we yank and push and pull. A little bit of sense of opening is totally fine to push out with the elbows. Just no force. Cool. Thanks, Miriam. All right. Did anyone try with the block with your heels? Feels quite nice. Or a pillow or a rolled towel can also make that pose feel more accessible. Quite fun. Okay. And our last pose today, we've already done it today, is pigeon. Okay. So we've spoken quite a lot now about that front leg in pigeon. So we've made note that that leg is out to the side, okay? The foot can be closer towards the hip, or you can shuffle it a little bit more forwards, but most of us, the front shin is on that diagonal, okay? And then we're shuffling the back leg away to ground the hips, and we're sitting evenly onto both bum cheeks, okay? So let's give that a go. And if there's any other questions around pigeon, we'll chat about it. Okay, so come from your plank into downward facing dog. You're probably feeling quite comfortable in this because we've done it already today. So bring your right leg into pigeon. Take your knee to the outside of your right wrist. Yes. Then slide your left leg back behind you. Sit your weight even on right and left sides. And now, because we're specifically doing this pose as a hip opener, I may say if you want a bigger stretch, shuffle your right foot a little bit higher up towards your left hand, because you're going to get more of a bum stretch. And if that's the reason, the purpose of the pose, then we can advise for a bit of that. Okay. And then forward fold and bring your elbows to the mat, or straight arms out in front of you. Okay, weight even on right and left sides, and you should be experiencing a good stretch into your right bum. A block underneath the hip like Marley has taken there is awesome, and it really helps with any discomfort in the knee. When you're ready, you can ease on up and push back into down dog, and then feel that on the other side. Okay, the reason for the block, it takes load, it takes pressure off your knee. So a good one to be aware of for your students, because a lot of people have sore knees in this pose, okay? Because when you fold forwards, which you all can do now, you're putting weight onto that front leg. Can you feel it? And that weight, that extra load, is sometimes not liked very much by your front knee in this position, quite common. So that is how you would help for that front leg. Okay, you all look much more comfortable in your pigeons. Okay, and you could always encourage to shuffle the bottom foot forwards a little bit more if you wanted more of a stretch. Whenever you're ready, you can come out of the pose and release. when we do it as a back bend like this morning, I don't encourage you to bring your foot forwards because I just want you to be stable, okay? Just find the stable base. If you're just gonna lie there and stretch, and maybe I wanna get you into a really big hip open at the end of the class as a peak pose, I may say, well, if you want a bigger stretch, shuffle that foot forwards. Okay, so also you can customize it to serve whatever purpose you need it to. Elaine, that's looking much more centered, much better and balanced on both sides, hey? Okay. Any questions around your pigeon pose? Much better. Good. I'm sure you, yes, who had a question?
Sorry, Laura, it's just that there's like, is there supposed to be like a gap here between?
Yes, yeah, of course. That gap might be bigger or smaller depending on your bone structure. But think about bringing that, your right hip over towards your left heel more. So that's also quite a nice indicator to try and square your hips, but there will be a gap. You won't necessarily rest your hip on your heel. But you can think of bringing your back hip around towards that foot to level out the hips. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, that feel better, Elaine? Cool. Well done, everyone. You've had a very long day with me and your body is probably feeling quite tired now. Have a lovely lunch break. Eat lots of delicious food. And you're going to watch videos and Taryn will see you all later. Cool. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a fabulous afternoon. Well done. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.